الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فإن خير الكلام كلام الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير هدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها فإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Aliyyun Kabir, the one who is the most high and he is the most greatest. That he has brought us together again in one of the houses, from the many houses of worship. وَنَسَأَلُ اللَّهَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى يَعْلِمَنَا مِنْ عِلْمِهِ. We ask Allah to teach us from the knowledge that He has, that He gives. وَيَنْفَعَنَا بِمَا عَلَمْتَنَا. And that Allah blesses us to benefit from that knowledge that He departs and gives us. وَنَسَأَلُ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ الْعَمَلُ بِهِ. We ask Allah to make it something that we can comprehend and use. وَأَنَّهُ يَكُونْ لَنَا حُجَّةٌ لَنَا لَا عَلَيْنَا, and that it is something in our favor and not something held against us. Ameen. We are with Talbis Iblis, the deceptions, the tricks, the plots of the devil against the sons of Adam, which means the human being. And inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala, I want to apologize. Yesterday we didn't have the class, but we're going to try to, inshallah, go from now until 3 o'clock. If people can stand it, we will take a break in between. You know, if people could stretch, go to the bathroom or whatever, but we're going to try to cover as much as we can. This book, it has 13 chapters, and the Shaikh, he summarized Ibn al-Jawzi, who was the author, Faraj is his nickname, who was from the people who came in the time of great division, great innovation, great mayhem. So he wrote books like this to aid the religion. And he summarized, because it's not 13 different ways or deceptions or tricks that the devil has. He has much more than that. But he chose the main 13 that was relevant to his time that he seen and that which he understood to be something to be for all times. So keep that in mind as you hear the points. They're not the only points. This is a big issue. And also, I'm going to highlight a few things that is relevant to the dars we had yesterday, the seminar on brotherhood in Masjid Bilal in Jersey City. And I think it's very important in context. And inshallah, I'll ask Allah to give me sincerity, truthfulness, and aid me in my efforts. Ameen. The first thing, the Shaykh, he begins the book, Ibn Jawzi, by saying about the process in which we were created and how we got to the point where the devil, Shaitan, he has these plots. So I'm going to mention from the Sheikh's book some of those benefits so it could help the points go down smoothly. You can understand, oh, okay, because sometimes people just read from the book. But the introduction allows you, once you get into the book, to digest it more. So I'm going to take a little bit from his introduction. After he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ibn Jawzi, he says, from amongst the greatest ni'mah, أعظم نعمة على الإنسان العقل, from the greatest things, blessings, gifts. Anytime you hear ni'mah, ni'mah means a special gift that Allah gives the person that has a lot of benefit and a lot of good in it. So you can have something with good, you can have something with benefit, but when it has a lot of benefit and a lot of good, and this is the general meaning of ni'mah. So that's why Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentioned وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمْ Islam Medina, and I've chosen and I'm pleased with Islam as your deen. But in the beginning of that ayah, he said, يَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ, this day I completed for you your deen. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَأَكْمَلْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي now, and I have completed my favor upon you. So put in parentheses, my favor, something that has a lot of benefit and a lot of good. And that's Islam. Islam, Allah called it His favor to us, and of course, the meaning has to include that Islam has much good, much benefit for creation. Now, so here in Josie said, from the greatest things, one thing that Naimi mentioned yesterday about Abdullah, he's one of my friends who studied in Yemen when I was there in Sana'a. He said, after he mentioned the good stuff about the brothers, the sisters that was there, Hamakallah, and the children, masjid was packed, mashallah. He said, one thing that I see that I must advise you on. He said, I didn't see anybody. And then one person, he said, no, well, I correct that. I see one person. Out of all the benefit that was mentioned in the lesson, I don't see people with notebooks, pens, pads writing down, or a device. So this is something that a lot of times the people forget, because it's kind of like entertainment. You want to hear what the Shaikh is saying. If he's going to talk about somebody, if it's going to be funny, if it's going to black out. But the benefit after the lesson, you say, how was the talk? It was nice. What did Shaikh talk about? I'm not sure, but it was nice. Almost stuff. Because nobody wrote nothing down, you see. So that's another thing. If you have your device, at least make some notes. Point number one, summarize, because I don't think you're going to go back and listen to me talk for an hour, 45 minutes on Facebook. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Allahu A'lam. But the point is that the first point when Josie has mentioned the introduction, from the greatest gifts, ni'mah, meaning, again, in parentheses, ni'mah means something that has a lot of good and something that has a lot of benefit. خير يعني نفع, a lot of نفع, خير النفع وبركة يعني, أو خير النفع نعم وكثير النفع وبركة, كثير النفع وبركة, يعني has a lot of benefit يعني, and a lot of يعني good, يعني بركة, good. So the first thing he mentioned, the greatest gift of Allah, the greatest gift Allah gave the human being is aql. Aql is your ability to understand, your ability to reason, your ability to separate right from wrong, the ability to understand Islam from kufr, tawheed from shirk, sunnah from bid'ah, haq min al-batil, what's truth from falsehood, sidq min al-kadhib, what's truthful from what's not truthful, and like this. So this is the meaning of aql, your intellect, your ability to have reason and discernment. So he said this is the greatest thing that Allah, the greatest ni'mah, thing that has a lot of benefit and gifts in it that Allah has given the human being. He said, لأنه أعلى لمعرفته subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the intellect, the second point, the reason why he's saying that it's the greatest, one of the greatest gifts Allah gives the human being, لأنه أعلى. أعلى, or the أعلى, أعلى means a tool, أعلى, not Allah. This is where the Arabic language is, of course. So I said, he said Allah, no, Allah, 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 Allah. Allah is a tool. لأنه آلة لمعرفة ربه subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because by intellect, this is the thing, the tool to help the person, the human being, that which he is saying, the one that Allah gave the greatest thing to him, his intellect, to understand his Lord. So without that intellect, without that level of ability to understand the reason, you can't even understand your Lord. And that's what Rasulullah, he said, رُفِعَ أَقْلَامٌ عَنْ ثَلَاثَةٍ. Three things, three situations, three individuals that angel won't write down his or her sins. One of them, al-majnoon, the one who doesn't have his intellect, his ability to reason, his ability to separate, discern, hatta yaqi, until he becomes in a state of sanity. So you see, the aql is the main thing that helps a person understand his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why many times when Allah talk about the people who are sinful, which sins are the thing that reduce your ability to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many times when Allah talk about the people of disbelief, the people of kufr, those who disbelieve in Allah wa ta'ala, the people of shirk, those who make partners with Allah, Allah described them without aql. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, Allah said, don't you have any sense? But he created them with sense and reason and ability. But why is he saying that rhetorically? Because the sins reduce that ability. Because it reduces the aql, sin. That's why he said, Summun bukmun umyun wahum la ya'qilun. Deaf, dumb, and blind. And then he didn't stop there. He said, and they have no intellect. But they have intellect. So what did he mean? Meaning the natural ability that he created them with to reason, to separate, to discern is reduced, in some cases even taken away, lost because of the sin. So when Ibn al-Jawzi says in the beginning of this book, the greatest ni'mah that Allah gave the human being, that Shaitan is plotting and has his tricks for to turn him into ruins, is his aql, his intellect. لأنه آلة لمعرفة ربه تعالى, because it, by that intellect, is the tool, the thing, the skill set that will allow that person to understand his Lord in the first place. The third point is that intellect is the thing يتوسل به صدقه لرسل. It will allow him further to believe in the prophets and messengers. So you see where he's going with this. He started with Allah wa ta'ala. Now he's moving to the prophets and messengers, because if you follow the way of the prophets and messengers, you'll be able to close the door on all of these tricks that are going to be mentioned in this book. All of the prophets and messengers have the same aqidah, the same belief, the same manhaj. And we talk about it in the general sense. Of course, each one of them had certain revelation and certain things changed. But in general, the general stuff that Allah gave them, if people held to that which they have to hold to in order to be Muslim, you will be able to slam the door shut on a lot of these tricks and plots of the devil. So the first thing, the intellect, is the greatest thing that Allah has created and given the human being. One of the greatest things. It's not the greatest thing, because there's a hadith that the people fabricated. أعظم خلق يعني العقل. The greatest thing Allah created is the intellect. And so now philosophers, people bid'ah. And they said, no, because the greatest thing that Allah created is the intellect, so I don't need no revelation. Or give me the revelation and I'll philosophize for you. That's different than what Ibn Jawzi is saying. From the greatest ni'mah that Allah has given the human being. It's different from the greatest creation that Allah has created as the intellect. No, the intellect is not the greatest. It's one of the most blessed things Allah gave you, but it's not the greatest. Because the intellect can allow you to go to the hellfire if you don't use it to follow what Allah told you and His Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the third point was not only it's a tool to help you understand your Lord further, it's a tool for the human being to help them accept the message that the prophets and messengers came with. And that is because once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human being and started to lay out all of the things that they would need, one of those needs is the sending of prophets and messengers. Necessity for what Allah knew that we needed. And thus Allah sent down books. And that leads you to the fourth point. Ibn al-Jawzi, he says, مثال الشريعة مثل الشمس. مثال الشريعة مثل الشمس. The example of the Sharia. When we say Sharia, we don't mean somebody gets his head chopped up on the camera. It's not Sharia. When we say Sharia, we don't mean to push someone who's gay off the top of a building. When we say Sharia, we don't mean the man beats the woman, she's the slave, he's the slave master. When we say Sharia, we don't mean young child marriage or sex trafficking. This is what the kuffar say when they say Sharia. Sharia means legislation. Like when we talk about a court of law, Seton Hall University in Newark, New Jersey, or Rutgers University. These are the law colleges. And they give me another law college in America. Anwar is good with that. Harvard. Your name Anwar? Is that what I'm saying? I'm sorry. That's Allah.
Sorry.
MashaAllah.
I was caught up in the
That's
conversation.
That's okay. But you right on time. Harvard. What's the point? We don't think about it, but if we were to talk about those schools in Arabic, we would say Kuliyat al-Sharia. They are schools of law. So Sharia means legislation. Law, legislation. So when you talk about how to read the Quran, this is Sharia. When you talk about family rights, custody, and provisions for families, you have to provide Sharia. When you talk about the issue of kindness, this is Sharia. When you talk about the issue of how you treat the orphans, this is Sharia. So Sharia is a broad term. So when the Shaikh he says, Sharia, mithaluhu kal shams, he's talking about the religion in general. He said the Sharia, the religion, i.e., is like the sun. Wal aql kal ayn, and the intellect is like a person's eye. So he's still trying to get you to see these points in the introduction before he starts to talk about the tricks of the shaitan. So imagine the sun is the Sharia, and your aql, your intellect, is the eye. He said if a person in that case opens his eye, and his eye is healthy, it's not sick or disease, when he looks at the sun, he will be able to see that sun in a natural way and benefit. But if the person's eye is bad, if his aql is tainted, if his eyes are closed, he won't be able to see that sun, which is the comparison in this parable, the sun when he opens his eyes. So this is why he's talking about this issue, because some of these tricks, you need to use your intellect, but you use your intellect to look at what Allah and His Messenger said about these things, and this will help you how to escape the pitfalls of the devil or his deception. So this, even the Josiah, he's mentioning introduction. And listen, when a person, further the Shaykh is saying, has a clean aql, intellect, this also means whatever the prophets and messengers come with, he's going to be able to see that, like the healthy eye sees the sun. So a lot of times, these issues, traps and deceptions, they work because the people don't have ilm. The people don't have the proper knowledge like they need, and this is one of the main things that you use your aql for. You use your intellect to follow the knowledge, not to follow your desires. And the prophets and messengers, Shaykh, he says, this is the fifth point, or fourth point, وَكَانَ يَعْلِمُهُمْ مِنْ وَحْيٍ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. And don't forget, the prophets and messengers to teach the people from revelation, and not teach them from guesswork. So, the Shaykh, he mentioned this in the beginning, and then as the Shaykh, he goes on, he starts to talk about the reason he wrote the book. Because somebody may say, well, why do we need to study the tricks of the devil? I don't hear nothing about no damn devil. Well, the Shaykh, he mentioned, he said, this is something that we have been told to do in the deen of Allah Ta'ala. And he cites the hadith of the Prophet, which is in the Bukhari Muslim. Hadith is in the Bukhari Muslim. This is the fifth point, why the Shaykh wrote the book. So we'll go back. Point number one, from the greatest blessings and gifts that have much benefit and much good in it that Allah gave us is our intellect. Point number two, and that intellect, Allah Ta'ala made it as a tool for people to understand their Lord. Number three, when a person uses that intellect properly, it's like the example of the healthy eye and the sun. The healthy eye is the intellect, and the sun is the Sharia, the religion. When the person looks at that sun with a healthy eye, he sees it. When the person looks at the religion from any angle with a healthy intellect, he understands it, he's able to conceptualize it and use it. Number four, this extends to the reason why Allah sent prophets and messengers and books to the people, so that they can use that intellect and to be guided. Point number five, we said most of the time when Allah Ta'ala mentions the people who don't use the intellect to follow the guidance, Allah describes them in a derogatory way, such as deaf, dumb, and blind, and then he reiterates because they have no intellect. Why he has created them with intellect. Point number six, the reason the Shaykh wrote this book is because in the religion, those things that are problematic, those things that are considered a trial, fitna, those things that are considered bad, we have to study in order that we don't fall into those pitfalls. And he cites the hadith from the Bukhari Muslim on the authority of Hudayf ibn Yaman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. قال كان الناس يسألون رسول الله عن الخير وكنت أسأله عن الشر مخافة أن يدركني وكما قال. He said the people used to ask Hudayfa ibn Yaman. Who was Hudayfa ibn Yaman? Anybody know? Sahaba, Jazakallah khair. Zid. Fika Shaykh, we got more.
He was entrusted with the name of Munafiqun.
Allahu Barafi, mashallah. This guy's always, he's got some stuff written on that smart pen, I guarantee you. Mashallah. Allah Barafi. He was given by the Prophet a list of people's names. Imagine I say to you, Ahi, take this list. Don't show it to nobody. You say, okay. In the list is 10 names. Each one of those people's name. If he dies, that person don't pray over him. Let the other people pray over him. You don't pray over him because he's from the hypocrites. So hypocrite, we use the term loosely, and then not to veer too much from the text. But be careful when you call a person a hypocrite, because it has two meanings. It has a literal meaning, face value meaning, and a religious meaning. The face value meaning, it means that person has two faces. And we don't mean a face here with a nose, eyes, ears, and then right next to it has another face. No. Two faces means he has many colors. Like we said, he's showing his true colors. He acts one way with this group, but then when he gets with this group, he switches up and acts as if he wasn't with the other group. This is the literal meaning of two-faced. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the hadith in Sahih Muslim, Inna asharra nas. Inna asharra nas. Inna asharra nas. I'm doing something that's a mistake, has to do with the raw. And I'm trying to do this to show my son, talking about how you roll the raw. We was taught you have to roll the raw like the Spanish raw, but we learned wrong from people that know. Inna asharra, you hear that's in the throat. Inna asharra, but the raw is from up in the roof of the mouth. Raw, ear, that's in the throat, like I'm gargling. And ear, you don't hear the gargle. So we have that thing they taught us, you gotta roll the raw, and they taught us do it like that. That's wrong. So inna asharra nas, inna asharra nas. Dhil wajhain. He said, from amongst the most evilest people, inna asharra nas dhil wajhain. From amongst the evilest people, those who have two faces. Laysa ma ha'ula, he's not with those that he perpetrates like he's with. Well, laysa ma ha'ula, he's not with those who he perpetrates like he's with. This is the literal meaning of hypocrite. But religiously, the hypocrite means Zahirul Muslim or Batinul Kafir. He displays his Islam as if he's a Muslim publicly, outwardly, but inside he disbelieves. You see the difference between the two. One shows you the characteristics, other shows he's speaking about the religion. Allah said, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ أَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ وَلَنْ تَجِدُ لَهُ نَصِيرًا. The hypocrites will be in the bottom of the pit, and they will not find a helper on the day of judgment. Why am I mentioning this? Because this, when the Shaikh is talking about the issue, barakallahu fikum, of the intellect, and those people who don't use the intellect to follow the text, then those people, Hudayfa is showing that when the people in the time of the Prophet used to ask him about the good things, Hudayfa said, but I used to ask him about the bad things, fearing that if I didn't know about it, I might mistake it for good and do it falling in. This is the same Hudayfa the Prophet gave a list, and those people names were the people that were considered the munafiqeen. Allah revealed to the Prophet, these people from amongst you, they're fake and Muslim, but inside they disbelieve. And that's the meaning of munafiq, religiously. Linguistically, it means he's a perpetrator. He has this face over here and this face over there. But religiously, it means he has one face with you as a Muslim, and with his people that he disbelieves with, he shows them, I really don't believe. So this, the Shaykh said, is the proof why he's writing this book, because from the hadith of Hudayfa, where he said the people used to ask the Prophet about the good, but I used to ask him about the bad, fearing that I will fall into it. This shows you the statement also of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He said, Araftu shaw, laysa bishaw. He said, learning and knowing what's bad is not merely bad in itself. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَعْرِفُ شَرْ وَقَعَ فِيهِ. Because whoever doesn't know evil, he will surely fall into it. statement of Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And then you had Hudayfa's statement prior to that, which Hudayfa's statement is tied to the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So this is why the Shaykh is writing the book to begin with. So once we're drawing this picture, you can see in your mind. So Allah, He creates Adam. Iblis was already created. Iblis had a lot of status. He was a jinn, but he was living amongst the angels. It was not an angel. Angels are made from what?
Light.
Like this light? What, 100 white light?
No.
75 light? What type of light?
Pure light.
Pure light, Zakallah khair. And jinn is made from what?
Smoke.
Butter? Somebody said butter? The jinn is made from butter?
Fire.
Fire, okay.
Fire.
Say, Barakallahu feekum. What kind of fire? Firecracker?
No.
Smokeless fire. Alhamdulillah. And we said the smokeless fire could be understood in layman terms, the white fire. When you have a flame, you have it purple sometimes, you have it red, you have it orange, you have it blue, and then sometimes you have it white. That's considered, the scholar said, the smokeless fire that Allah created the jinn from. So, the jinn was amongst the angels in the heavens. From amongst the jinn was the one who's called now Iblis. And so he became envious and upset with a new creation, human being, which started with Adam. So now Allah creates not only angels and jinns with aql to discern between what's right and wrong, He creates another creation that is going to allow to do things that he can get the greater reward like the jinn. So you see why Iblis became very arrogant and upset and envious and mad and followed his desires. All those 4 things we mentioned in the khutbah, the pillars of kufr. First one, arrogancy, kibr, which is to reject the truth and to look down on the people. Reject the truth and look down on the people. Means stand on the balcony and look down like this and see the people? No. Look down on the people means to belittle them. To make their sins magnified and great. Oh, he's horrible. I would never do that. That guy's evil. But you forget your own evil and your greater sins that you have than that person who you're talking about. This is the meaning of looking down on the people. So the Prophet said, Ibn Qayyim, Jawziyah, he said that the pillars of disbelief, or kana kufr, araba, 4. Said number 1, kibr, which again, reject the truth and look down on others. That's one shade of kibr, we call loosely arrogancy. The second thing he said, envy, hasad, jealousy. That is, someone has something, you wish Allah had given to them, that He will take it from them and give it to yourself. And some scholars said, you simply just want that person to lose it, and you don't even want it yourself. That's the worst type of envy. Allah Mustaan. Then the third pillar of kufr is anger. Anger, meaning to act out of anger, to follow your anger, and not simply being a person who becomes angry, because that's a natural thing that Allah made in people, in creation. But the Prophet told you, don't act on anger. Don't speak when you're angry. Don't do something when you're angry. And then the issue shahwa, number 4, following your desires. Even though you know it's wrong, you have to do it. So these 4 things Iblis exemplified at Adam. Simply because Allah created him and gave him the status, and one of them is the aql, to worship Allah, to do right, not to do wrong, and if he does wrong, to repent and so forth. So now, if you fast forward, Iblis is upset. And so now, he has to make people think that he's right. He has to make things up. He has to beautify things to the people, meaning making the wrong look good so people will do it. And he has to also deceive you. So the Shaykh said this is why he's writing the book, because all of this evil can be found displayed for the Muslims to learn so they don't fall into it, from the hadith of Hudayf Yaman, when the people used to ask the Prophet about the good. He said, but I used to ask the Prophet about the evil, fearing if I didn't know it, I would fall into it. Now, The Shaykh, number 7, he said, so, وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ جَاءَ بِبَيَانِ الْكَافِي. You should understand, and this is important because again, most of the things that you need to be protected against Shaitan's tricks, it's the message that's the same, it's the worship that's the same, it's the foundation that's the same from the beginning, which is Adam, all the way to Muhammad. But people think that that's old-fashioned, or they were prophets, they're corny, or, well, that doesn't work for this day and time. No. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ يعني ماذا جاء ببيان كافيا. You should know for surety that which they came with is enough for you as a way to protect yourself. That's what Imam Ibn Jawzi is saying in this book of The Tricks of the Devil. So, from amongst the ways, from amongst the things that he does, talbis, yulabbisu ala nas. This is why he named the book talbis. Labbas means that you dress something up. Anybody know the story about truth and falsehood? Anybody know the story of Musa when he went swimming? What happened to his clothes? And he struck the rock with the staff, with the stick. What about that story?
You're asking us? I believe, if I remember correctly,
I want the clothes part.
The rock ran off with his clothes.
Okay, stop right there. Who knows the story about truth and falsehood? It said truth went swimming and falsehood took his clothes. So when truth got out of the water, he was butt naked looking for his clothes. Falsehood took his clothes and was walking around. People said, hey, what's up, truth? Thought it was truth. But that was falsehood. And truth was walking around looking for his clothes, and then he seen falsehood. He said, hey, you got my clothes, give me my clothes. So the people gathered around because they thought, wait a minute, this guy's trying to attack truth. Truth is honorable. It's something we all like and respect. Who's going to come and harm truth? So they gathered around. He said, no, man. He said, my name is Truth. They said, no, how could you be Truth? That's Truth. He said, no, I'm telling you, my name is Truth. The guy who had the clothes on said, no, I'm Truth. He said, listen, I'm telling you, I'm the naked truth. He stole my clothes. Then the people looked real close and said, oh yeah, he has a mark on him. That is truth. The old heads used to tell the story in Jahiliyyah, but you see it has some validity. They said a wolf. Yeah, that's where they get these parables from. So this is what Iblis he does. Yulabbisu ala nas. He dresses it up for the people so the people can bite it. Then once you bite into that thing, you say, oh man, I thought it was sweet. The only way he can trick you, Allah Azza wa Jalla, he said, Inna kayda shaitan kana mada da'ifa. Allah said, verily the plot of the devil is weak. So why do we catch so much hell with the devil if his plot is weak? Because once he gets us with the tricks, we become divided, we become weak. So now his plot is successful because we become weakened. If we don't get weak, if we stay together, we don't separate, we don't do the things that causes our demise, then his plot will never affect you. One of the things is to have the knowledge of what's happening. That's why the Shaikh wrote this book. So from amongst the things the Shaykh he mentioned, from the 13, is that the division. And the Prophet has some hadith where he talked about this issue of division. But that's the first thing he mentioned, that Shaitan is coming to yufarriqu al-jama'ah, to break up the jama'ah. That's the first thing. Which means the opposite, it's an obligation to hold on to the jama'ah. So what is the jama'ah? People have different meanings of the jama'ah. Like we said, we're going to pray in jama'ah, or I'm from this jama'ah, or he left the jama'ah. The first thing that Allah wa ta'ala, he mentioned this concept of the Quran when he said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. Jami'an, the masdar, the verbal noun, meaning it's something you do and it's a thing that you could see. This is the Arabic term masdar. You know, in Arabic language, just like in English language, you have a thing and an action. You have a thing and an action. In English, noun is the thing and the verb is the action. In Arabic, ism is the noun, the thing, and fi'lun is the action. So you also have in Arabic something that's nus, 50-50, to make up one category. It's half noun, half verb. Like for example in Arabic, kharuj, kha, ra, wow, and a jim, kharuj. What is the meaning of kharuj? Kharuj means to exit. But at the same time, it's a thing. That's why when we go to the Arabic countries, you see it says kharuj, then it has a picture of a man doing like this. And it's basically just the doorway to go in and to go out. So the doorway is kharuj because it's a thing, but your action, when you're enacting that action going out, is kharuj as well. That's called masdar in Arabic. Masdar, it's a verbal noun. It's a noun that also has an action that you can see with that word at the same time. So this, when we talk about the jami'an, jama'ah is the masdar of jami'an. Jami'an means to be together, to be joined, to be fastened. So jama'ah is a thing and an action. Whether it's the masjid, whether it's a village, whether it's a town, whether it's a city, whether it's a nation of people, and unifying together upon what's right is jama'ah as well. So that's why you say, what are you doing? I'm getting ready to make jama'ah. Then you pray. Where are you going? I'm going to catch the jama'ah, a place. So it's a place and an action at the same time. So Allah said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا, meaning jama'atan, yani as a group of people, وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, and don't divide. So here, the first point the Shaykh said from the 13 things, from the tricks of the devil, yani التفرقوا, yani jama'ah, to make division between the Muslims. But the opposite is what we should be doing. Luzum al-jama'ah, holding together as a group of people. And that's why all of them, they have in their books, Imam Tirmidhi, Imam Ahmad, all of these great scholars, Imam Bukhari, Muslim, the chapter of Luzum al-jama'ah, the chapter of Wujub al-Luzum al-jama'ah. The obligation, Luzum means sticking to. So al-wujub, the obligation, luzum al-jama'ah, of holding together with the group upon truth. Now, some ulama, they put it in their books as a part of iman, part of deen. So this is the first thing he mentioned in the book, that the shaitan will come and he will make this issue, which is one of his tricks. And we see the whole issue when people say, well, why are there so many groups and sects? Well, that's what the shaitan did, from amongst his deceptions. And this is the first thing that normally causes our problem, the division. They say divide and conquer. No. I mean conquer and divide. They normally say that, conquer and divide. But it's not conquer and divide. It's divide, then conquer. Because as long as the people together, you can't conquer them. So it's not conquer them and then divide. No. It's divide them first. Get them to fight with it from within. Get them to start, a fire from amongst themselves. Then you could come in like you're the peacemakers and you conquer. And we see that's what they did with colonialism and imperialism, right? They make a problem and then they come back like the peacemakers. So this is the thing that he mentioned. The first thing, the shaitan will come and to break up the jama'ah. Jama'ah has many meanings. Some ulama, they said it means the ulama of fiqh. Those who teach you what's halal, haram, that is jama'ah. So to break them up, to make them fight and split amongst one another. And you see in the history, they used to do it. Fight amongst themselves. This group is better than that group, and some people will come because they follow one sheikh or one imam. They want to pray with only their people. And wallah, it's happened in history. So the people that follow the Shafi'i teachings, they don't want to pray with the people who's Hanafi. So Asr is at 3:30. So this group will come purposely to pray at 4:15 because they know by 3:30 those people are going to be gone and they don't want to pray with them. This has come from what the Shaikh is talking about. Shaitan finds a way to break up those people based upon their scholarships and what they understand and so forth. Also, they said that the meaning of Jama'ah, it means the companions. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And we can see in the history again how people try to make fitna between the companions. People try to infiltrate and make problems, which ultimately led to the death of Umar, then Uthman, and Ali, because of this concept, this issue of the shaitan. We'll also, when we talk about this issue, the Prophet ﷺ, there are many hadith that he talks about this issue of the Jama'ah without making it long at that point. One of them, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, من أراد أن بحبحة الجنة فليزوم الجماعة. Now, he said, whoever wants to settle and taste the paradise, then let him stick to the Jama'ah. The Prophet ﷺ, he also mentioned الشيطان مع واحد وأبعد من اثنين. The shaitan is with one and he's further away from two. It's authentic hadith. But let's keep it in context. He's with one means that when you're alone, the shaitan can whisper to you. You don't have anybody to tell you you shouldn't do that, or that's not a good idea, or let's pray, or you're by yourself. It said that the idle mind is the devil's what? Playground. Some said workshop. But he's further away from two doesn't mean that he can't be with two. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when a man is with a lady who's not his relative's wife, who's the third? A shaitan. So ab'ad min ithnaini, this means he's further away than he would be if it's just one. But he still could be with two. Still could be with two. Especially if it's the opposite sex. Yes, he will beautify. Maybe you don't even like that lady, for example. She's not attractive. You never thought about having any intercourse with her, being, her boyfriend, or even marrying her. But if you're with her enough alone, the shaitan will put that idea in your head. Make you see her. Wow, I didn't know her boobs was that big. Wow, nice. Then you start thinking you want to do something with her. Then when you finish, you say, man, her boobs wasn't that big, but he beautifies it for you. Make her look real beautiful. Man, she look good tonight. But when it's over, we say, man, she wasn't that attractive, man. I just, I don't know what I was thinking about. So shaitan. And it wasn't even that good. I would have been left. For real. So the context is important. Prophet said shaitan is with one, but he's further away from those two than he is that one. Doesn't mean that that's absolute. Sometimes the shaitan is still there when it's two. It can be there when it's three, when it's four, it depends. But the point is, don't be alone. Don't be alone. And we find with mental illness and depression, this is the main thing, people that have to be alone. And sometimes even with jinn possession, you'll find that person alone a lot. Why? Because the jinn wants them alone so that nobody can help them. Which is dangerous. Dangerous. You see. And that person can be so stooped in their and stuck in their sadness that they say, you know what, I can't take it no more. And now the next thing is the big S. Suicide. But if they were with somebody, that person could uplift them. That person could help them. That person could, be there to check on them or to make sure that they're not in an environment to hurt themselves. So you see the benefit and why the Prophet ﷺ mentioned shaitan was one, but he's ab'ad min ithnain, min al-wahid, but he's further away from two than he is with the one. Now, also the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, سَتَفْتَرِقُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى ثَلَاثَ وَسَبْعِينَ فِرْقًا. My ummah, the Muslims, will divide into 73 sects. Prophesied, Allah Muslim. And some scholars said we'll have more than 73 sects now, but all of those sects stem from the 73. كلهم في النار إلا واحد. All of them going to be in the fire except one group. So imagine you have groups that stemmed from the mainstream Muslim. The Prophet said, كلهم في النار إلا واحد. Naam. All of them going to be in the fire except one. So you can see how people develop extremism about we on the Sunnah and they on Bid'ah. Because the statement of the Prophet is clear, Akhi. He said all of them going to be on the fire. They people Bid'ah and we on this hot. We on the dawah, Akhi. Don't sit with them people. You sit with the people of the fire, Akhi. See how they go with this issue. When you have two types of being in the fire. You have being in the fire temporarily, coming out, going to Jannah, and you have being in the fire for eternity. The Prophet didn't say which one. May Allah protect us from the fire. We don't want a toe to go in the fire for a centimeter of a second, because the fire, the Prophet said, of the hereafter is 70 times more hotter than the hottest fire in this dunya. Can you imagine? 70 times more intense than the hottest fire in this dunya. And now fil akhirah, the fire in the hereafter. Who wants to try that? Oh man, hell, I can do some time in the fire. Listen, I don't care. Some people have said that. Foolish. What? Well, I just have to see you on the day of judgment. I'll do my time in the fire. I'm going to kill that nigga. Serious? You saying it about a Muslim with the burn in your hand. You got to be kidding. Really? You're going to do the time in the fire. You can go get you a public defender lawyer and get out on bail and you're going to be all right. No, they ain't like that. So from Salam, he said, Kuluhum finnar. Some scholars said, this means all of those people will be in the fire forever. And the only ones won't be is the ones who die and stay upon what the Prophet said, Ma ana alayhi yawm. What I'm upon today in my lifetime, and when I die, wa ashabi, my companions. The Prophet was alive. Whoever learned and heard his message and he was alive, of course they're going to go to the Jannah if they died upon that. The Prophet died. Who carried the religion to the rest of the world? It was the Prophet's message, the companions. So he said, well, ashabi, and my companions. That's why he said, yani, in other hadith, and my companions. Because they are the ones who carry the religion of the Prophet. But some scholars, they also said, if those people died on other than the Prophet, but they were Muslim, but they didn't have major bid'ah, then they may go in the fire, but they will come out. What's major bid'ah? We said everything is major and minor. I know this is getting complex, maybe, but just fasten your seatbelt. Hold on to your kufi. Major and minor. Anything that's on the right-hand side of the street, major, counted as hellfire. Forever. Anything that's on the left side of the street, minor, counted as maybe hellfire temporarily, maybe not. Because if Allah, He forgives you, you don't touch the fire. But if you do the crime and Allah says do the time, you got to go to the hellfire. But you'll come out if you're a Muslim. If it's minor. If it's major, that's it. You're not coming out. So you have major shirk. Give me an example of what's major shirk. Associate partners with Allah. That's too dry. What is the major shirk? Huh? Believe he has a son. Okay, tell you, that's better. Okay. Give me another example of major shirk. Come on, you guys. You in America, we got a whole bunch of shirk in this place. Praying towards individual in the grave. Calling upon them.
To suffice you.
Okay. Anybody else? Y'all shy, y'all sleep, or y'all don't know? Or all above? Major shirk. What's the issue of major shirk? Adultery? That's not major shirk. That's a major sin, but it's not major shirk. Shirk, yani...
Thinking other people can help you other than Allah.
Say it again?
Thinking others can help you other than Allah and calling on them for help.
Okay, you call it, so I get a flat tire, and I call say, Yusuf, I got a flat tire. Can you give me on Main Street? That's major shirk.
If you don't think Allah can do it, only that person can, yes. If you think only that person can do it and not Allah, Allah is not saying that person as a help. You think that person only can help you and not Allah.
But Allah's going to come down and change my tire. I think you're in a conversation where people are going to come back at you like this now.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. If you think only that person can help you and not Allah, and that help isn't, Allah is not saying that help through that individual.
Okay,
then
now you're cooking with Crisco. And you think that solely that person, and that Allah doesn't have anything to do with that person helping you. Now this is sure. Okay,
like a doctor, maybe if you have an illness and you call on a doctor for help, you think the doctor, you don't think Allah.
All right. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. Your pressure cooker is on high. MashaAllah. Allah bless you. These concepts we have to ask. Listen, when we listen to the rules of Shaikh ibn Uthaymeen in Arabic, and I always emphasize that because I want my people to understand the key to this ilm is the lugha to the Arabic. You're not learning Arabic so you can say I'm an Arab and you don't want to be African American. No, it's to learn the deen, the key to the deen. When we listen to the durus of any of those ulama that have a teaching style, Sheikh Mukbil and Sheikh Al-Albani, those great scholars of our time, they interact with the student. You can't just teach and everybody sit and you don't ask and they don't say nothing because you don't know who knows something or what they don't know or what misconception they might have that you need to clarify. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot. And I don't want you to feel, man, why the Sheikh called, why are you asking that? Just teach, man. No. We got to know this stuff. You know. So, major shirk, Jesus is God, Jesus is the Son of Allah, Jesus is Lord. This is major shirk. Meaning if you die upon that, you burn in hell forever. Except you were misled. And you really never heard or had the opportunity to know what's true Islam. Then Allah is going to give you a special test. Then Allah is going to give you a special test on the day of judgment. And if you pass it, you go to Jannah. If you fail it, you go to the fire. But people that had a genuine chance and they turned away from the truth and they understood the truth and they died on major shirk, they will never come out of the hellfire. Major shirk, praying to an idol. Major shirk, rubbing the penis in India, thinking it's going to make you fertile. Major shirk, rubbing the cow that they make. Major shirk, the rats or gods. Any type of concept. The 5%er, God, inside of me, that's major shirk. What did it say? I can't even repeat that crap. This is Allah. Allah was that. Those are even not the alphabets of the statement Allah to begin with. How jahil. Allah Mustaan. Any major shirk. This rabbit foot, if I keep it in my back pocket, I'll never get hit by a car. Major shirk. Oh wow, that's North Star. I'm looking at it, I'm going to make a request, and that North Star is going to give it to me. Major shirk. If you sweep my foot with that broom again, I'm going to kill you. Now I got 7 years bad luck. Major shirk. The mirror broke. Bad luck. Any superstition. Major shirk.
What was it? Tariq, when you would throw the rocks in the air in whichever direction the birds would go. It would be a bad omen, believing in omens.
All the superstitions, major shirk, they're under category. But the zodiac, believing that they bring you this, and because I'm a Gemini and I'm a Cancer, so it has to be like this based upon this star and this zodiac, major shirk. Major kufr. What is kufr? Kufr is to deny Allah wa ta'ala. It's kufr. And a form of kufr could also be shirk. Like to say Jesus is the Son of Allah. This is kufr. Because you're denying the real truth. Allah is the God, the one to be worshipped, not Isa. So major kufr is to deny or to cover the truth with falsehood. So to be a Jew or Christian, major kufr. To be a Seventh-day Adventist, major kufr. To be Rasta with a big blood, major kufr. Major kufr. To say that the Jew and the Christian are not people that are called mushrikun, major kufr. Allah called them that in the Quran. How could you deny it? To say Aisha is not innocent, she slept with the Sahaba, she was lewd, she was a whore, major kufr. Allah cleared her in the Quran. To say Abu Bakr was a kafir, major kufr. To say Umar was a kafir, major kufr. To say Uthman was a pig, major kufr. Any denying and covering the truth that's foundational in Islam, or that has to do with something Allah said in the Quran or authentic hadith, it's major rejection, major covering the truth, major kufr. So major shirk, major kufr, we gave examples. If you die upon them, you don't come out of the fire. What's major hypocrisy? There's a major and a minor hypocrisy. Lying is hypocrisy. It's a trait the Prophet mentioned. Having a responsibility, but you break the trust, you don't carry it out, it's hypocrisy. The Prophet mentions the trait. Promising something and breaking your promise where you can keep your promise, it's hypocrisy. The Prophet mentioned it. It's a trait. When you deal with somebody, you argue in a way that's not proper. You argue with someone, you keep it in context. You don't go beyond the limits. Someone wronged you, you're upset with him, now you talk about his mother, his daddy, his aunt, you just get everybody. So for he mentioned this, when he argues, he's outside the bound. He argues in a malicious, wicked way. This is an issue of hypocrisy. Minor hypocrisy. To take something and deceive somebody, to tell the baby, here, and then when he comes, you take it back and you grab him. That's a form of hypocrisy. Because you're tricking him, you're deceiving him. Any deceit is a type of hypocrisy. But major hypocrisy is to portray Islam, but inside feel another way about it. Major hypocrisy is to portray Islam, but inside you feel another way about it. So if it's inside your heart, how you feel, but you display something else, major kufr. You die like that, only Allah knows you have that in your heart. Unless you tell somebody, you die on that, you go to hell forever. So what's major? You can make repentance, but if you die upon it, there's no repentance. You died upon it, you burn forever. And if it's minor, then you die upon it, Allah can forgive you or punish you. But if you were Muslim, then you'll come out of the fire. And also, bid'ah is major and minor. Major bid'ah is to go to the grave and make this dua to the deceased. It's not from our religion. So bid'ah is when you do an action that's not from our religion, and you think that that action is going to draw you nearer to Allah. It's going to make you more beloved to Allah. It's going to make you more righteous and sanctified in the sight of Allah. Then it becomes bid'ah. Has to have those other things to gain closeness to Allah, to become more dearer to Allah, that Allah He loves, He's pleased with it. Once you attach that to the action that's not from the deen, it's bid'ah. So going to the grave is bid'ah when you're going to make dua, but it's major bid'ah because it's a type of shirk. While reading the Quran and rocking like this is minor bid'ah, because the Prophet didn't do that when he read the Quran. You can do it, but it's minor bid'ah. Minor bid'ah. We have other forms of, bid'ah, such as raising the hands and blowing and wiping. Some people said that's bid'ah. No, the Prophet used to wipe, blow when he was sick. But when you make dua, you don't blow. Every time you make dua, you raise your hands and you wipe. I make dhuhr. After dhuhr, I raise my hands immediately. And then I wipe my face and my hands, touch my leg and my chest. And you say, what are you doing? I said, I'm getting the barakah out of my face. This is bid'ah. And some people, they do it.
I see brothers do it. I do it all the time.
As soon as they pray, they do like this.
I said, what is that?
They ain't wipe.
They wipe their face down their hand.
And washing up. Get the barakah out of my beard, bro.
I'm trying to stand down.
Yeah, Allah Musta'an. So this is important because when we talk about what the Shaikh is talking about, the issue of being upon the Jama'ah, as the Prophet mentions, hadith, then this means the follower of Prophet came with his Sahaba. It's very important. But also it has a side of extremism to it because nobody's free from bid'ah. A person can do it unintentionally. Nobody's free from shirk. A person can do it unintentionally. The Prophet used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min an ushrika bika shay'an a'lamu wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lamu. So, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from shirk knowingly and unknowingly. That's the messenger of Allah. Because humans make mistakes. What happened to the man when his camel went off with all of his stuff and he thought he was going to just perish because he has no water, no food, and then the camel came back and he woke up and seen the camel. What did he do?
He misspoke. He misspoke. He praised the camel, I think, and then Allah, like he misspoke.
He misspoke.
But
he said Allah is his slave and he was the Rabb. Rather than thinking Allah is his Rabb.
You should say Allahumma anta rabbi wa ana abduk. This is a dua. Allahumma anta rabbi, oh Allah, you are my Lord, wa ana abduk, and I am your servant. He switched it. He was so happy he twisted his word. He said Allahumma ana rabbuka wa anta abdi. No, Allahumma ana rabbuk wa anta abdi. No, Allahumma. This is Allahumma. Allahumma. Allahumma anta rabbi. Allahumma anta abdi wa ana. Allahumma anta abdi wa ana rabbuk. Okay, he said, oh Allah, you are my servant and I am your Lord. Is that a statement of shirk or not?
Yeah.
If you believe it.
لا ما أسأل هذا أنا أقول هل هو شرك لفظي? Is it a statement of shirk? Not if you believe it.
Right.
Just simply that construct, does it fall in the category you made Allah something that He's not?
Yes.
Because that's the simple way for shirk. You make Allah something He's not. He's my son. He's the third of the three. He's our father. All of this shirk. Why? Because you make Allah like His creation. So if I say, oh Allah, you are my servant and I am your Lord, I switched it.
Yes.
So I'm making shirk with Allah. If you say, Wallahi wa nabiyyi, that wow is the wow for swearing. Wallahi. Not wallahu, wallahi, wa nabiyyi. I swear by Allah and the Prophet. Is that shirk or not?
Sure.
Shirk.
Yes.
Because you swore in one statement, which is an act of worship by Allah, and then you swore by creation, which is the Prophet. Even though he's a prophet, you can't swear by him. You have to swear only by Allah.
Only by the right.
Yeah. So if you say, Ma'ashallahu shitta, Ma'ashallahu wa shitta. Ma'asha'Allah, Allah past tense, he willed something, he decided. Wa shitta, and Arabic shitta means, and I willed it too. So you say, Ma'asha'Allah wa shitta. Allah, and I willed it. You can't do that. Because you're mixing Allah's will with your will. You have to say, Ma'asha'Allah, the Prophet said, Thumma shitta. And after Allah willed that, then I was created, then I desired and wanted the same thing. Because you separated them in context. If you join them together, Allah's will and your will, minor shirk. Just an example of a human making sure unknowingly, unintentionally, that man will say, oh Allah, you are my servant, I'm your Lord. That's why the Prophet used to say, oh Allah, I seek refuge in making shirk with you, knowingly or unknowingly. So what does tell you? Shh. We got to pump the brakes. It's not always the way it seems. And that's why the next thing the Shaikh mentioned from the tricks of the shaitan, bid'ah. Bid'ah. Because this is something that, wallahi, if the shaitan gets you to make bid'ah, it's a serious problem. But one of the things about bid'ah we oftentimes forget is that it's bid'ah to deem something bid'ah is not bid'ah. A bid'ah, again, is to deem something bid'ah is not bid'ah. Just like kufr is to deem something kufr is not kufr. So, for example, what I mean when I say to deem something bid'ah is not bid'ah.
To say that it is, to deem something is to say that it is.
No, I was going to give you an example.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I thought it was a question.
It's okay. I'll give you a drink to try. It's okay. I'll be. Gulu, 15. This is one of the things the Shaikh mentioned in his book too. Gulu, the Salihin. Gulu means to go in excess. You go beyond the limits. Ziyada, you go too far. Gulu, the Salihin. To be extreme with your righteous. The Prophet he said, Iyakum wal Gulu. I warn you to stay away from extremism. فَإِنَّهُ أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ. Because it is the very thing that destroyed the nations before you. What destroyed the nations before you? Al-Gulu. Those people went too far. This is how we got to Jesus, the Son of Allah. That's Gulu. They went too far. He don't have no father, so he must be the Son of God. That's so. Adam don't have no mother nor father. Have they ever said Adam is the Son of God? No. Gulu. You go too far. The Prophet said, Iyakum wa al-Gulu. He said, be aware of extremism. فَإِنَّهُ أَهْلَكَ الَّذِينَ كَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ الْغُلُو. Because, okay, the thing that destroyed indeed the people, the nations before you, Christians and Jews, indeed it is being an extreme. Salihin, you're righteous. It includes prophets, messengers, before that angels, because they have made the angels. They have made the angels gods. What do they call Mary? Huh?
Mother of God.
Yeah, Mother of God. So, the point here is that the Prophet mentioned this. Why? Because he understood that the way that the Christians got themselves in the predicament of not just shirk, making a creation of Allah like him, but also kufr, saying that this is the Son of Allah, Gulu. Gulu, what you're righteous. And righteous people, it starts with the prophet of that people. the messenger of that people. Then it trickles down to the ulama, people of knowledge, or yani muluk, people that are kings, that have the kingdom with them. So the Prophet he mentioned this, and when you talk about this issue of bid'ah, this is one way that something that a person does can be considered bid'ah that's not bid'ah. It's not bid'ah, but they make it bid'ah. And that is when we talk about the issue of someone obeying the leader in a way that that leader has no accountability. That's bid'ah. But when you don't do that, then some people, even to today, they call it bid'ah. For example,
Shaikh,
now,
forgive me for interrupting you, but there's 10% left on your phone.
10%.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're going to plug, but you're not going to be able
It's
to
not gonna reach
send your
you.
card.
Excuse me?
Send your card. No, send your card here.
I don't.
Okay.
I'll check in a minute.
No. If you don't have one,
We'll check.
go
Well,
upstairs out the door, all the way to the 3rd floor. Knock on the door and tell your mom, give you the extension card. Tell her quick.
Right. You said if they, well, he's about to look to see if they have an extension cord first.
No, but I'm telling you what to do in case they don't.
Okay.
It's 10 minutes now. Go through these doors. The door that has the steps go all the way to the 3rd floor. Then turn. The door that's facing you, when you get to the 3rd floor, knock on that door. When she comes, tell her who it is. Tell her, give you the extension card, my extension card, quickly. So the point is that something, making something that's not bid'ah is a way to make bid'ah. Something's not bid'ah, but you deem it to be bid'ah. For example, like we mentioned, praying in the masjid. This is a question the brother asked yesterday in the dark. If a person, and we're talking about this fitna of not praying in the masjid, because some people say you can't pray in this masjid, you can't pray in that masjid. There have to be a people that's on the way of the sunnah, or they have to, even further than that, they make real, distinct, they have to be Salafi. Now that's a whole other term. What is that, to be Salafi? But they said you can't pray in any masjid unless it's known it's a masjid that's a masjid upon Salafiyah. So the question was asked. So, if it's time to pray, and there's a masjid that teaches Shi'ism, Shia. What's the masjid that teaches, they teach you about one?
Yes.
Take it. So he don't need to get it. Okay, take it. Okay. So there's a masjid to teach Shiaism. There's a masjid to teach Sufism. I'm giving examples now. There's a masjid to teach the Qadriya. There's a masjid to teach Tabligh, Jama'at al-Tabligh. There's a masjid to teach Ikhwan Muslimun. There's a masjid to teach, all of those ways or ways that are considered not the way of the Salaf. To be a Shia is not the way of a Salaf. It's not the way of a Salaf. It didn't even exist during the time of the Prophet. It came in the time of Ali and Uthman, and it means now you say that Uthman shouldn't have been before Ali. Ali is like to the Prophet, like Musa was to Harun. This is Shiism. So they teach him that. And then they stole the Khalifa, the leadership from Ali, Abu Bakr. Somebody's teaching that. Number 2, somebody's teaching Barakallahu Fikum. They're teaching what we said after Shiism, they teach Quran Muslimin, which is, no, let's go back. They teach Sufism. They teach Sufism. That is, you close your eyes in the dark with incense, and you say, who, and you rock, who, the pronoun. Then you add Allah, 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 1,000,000 times. Prophet didn't do that. Sahaba didn't do that. It's not from the things that you do of ibadah. It's not something that's pleasing to Allah because the Prophet didn't do it. To sit in the masjid, to make dhikr, and somebody say Subhanallah, and everybody says Subhanallah, 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 Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, like a choir, and you do it 100 times. The Prophet and Sahaba didn't do it. You have Jama'at al-Tabligh, going out on the road for 40 days, and yeah, that was, but they have a set, you have to go out, brother, for 40 days in the path. The person just got out of the penitentiary. What does he know about Islam? He's a new Muslim. This is not to talk about the brothers in the penitentiary, but to have a mission of da'wah, you need knowledge out here. Somebody just accept Islam on the corner, and you say, come on, brother, go with us on the path tomorrow. 40, he leaves his wife, he leaves his job, comes back, he's evicted, his situation's all jacked. He said, no, brother, you were going in the path for the sake of Allah. Allah will replace that, brother. Prophet didn't do that. He didn't have a mentality like that. You have these political groups like Quran Muslimin rising up against the government. Yeah, you have some text where the Prophet mentioned that, يكون كفر بواح. Except the person has major clear kufr. In that case, then you can go against the leader. But there's conditions to that. If you go against the leader and he's going to crush the opposition, then you don't go against the leader. You have to have power, organization, and when you pull them down, when you take them down, you can restore what's restitution. And not that it's worse than when you have the leader in charge. So all of these examples of groups, if you had to pray, and it was clear that masjid is a Shia masjid, that masjid they teach Shiism in it, that masjid is a Sufi masjid, they teach Sufi in that masjid, and there's different levels of Shiism and Sufi. We just saying in general, that masjid is a masjid that teaches Quran Muslimin. That masjid is a Tablighi masjid. They gather their headquarters. It's time for Asr. I'm traveling. I see the masjid. I hear the adhan. Can I go in that masjid and pray? Or can I not pray in that masjid because they teach innovation? The answer is yes. What they teach in that masjid has nothing to do with your obligation to make salat in that masjid. So as long as they don't have a grave in the masjid. Because in the Muslim countries, they bury the person in the grave, and the grave is in the masjid. So he's right here at the Qibla. The Imam, he said, Allahu Akbar. He's praying the dead person, his grave is right. That's impermissible. Whether you're praying to him or not, you cannot pray directly to a grave. The Prophet prohibited it. It's a type of shirk. It's a type of shirk by default because the way that you face when you pray, you're making reference to that thing. We pray towards what?
Kaaba.
The Kaaba. Do we reverence the Kaaba or not?
Do we what?
Reverence it. Hold it in high esteem.
Yeah.
Do we deem that that's going to be something that Allah is pleased with? Praying towards the Kaaba?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we do.
So if you pray towards a chair, a wall, you're not referencing that wall or the chair. You're using, based on your intention, that so no one walks between you and your prostration. But if you're facing towards the Qibla, then that's what you hold in high esteem. That's what you deem that is going to get your salat accepted because Allah told you. So if you have a dead person there, he was the Shaikh of the village. He was the one that used to heal the people. He had the powers to heal by Allah's permission. He was somebody who was a great warrior. He was a person who used to stand up at night. And when he died, all of the people from that area came, 10,000 people. If you put him in the masjid grave, no doubt, everybody that prays towards him in that masjid in the grave thinks they're going to get something special from him because they're praying towards him in that grave. No doubt. The same thing when they go around a person's grave like this, like it's the Kaaba, chanting, making dua. Why are they going around his grave like that? Because they deem because he was great, Allah loves him, and so he can take their prayers to Allah. If that's in a masjid, that grave, and they're doing that, you can't pray in that masjid. Because your salat won't be accepted. But you take the grave out. They're teaching some aspects of Sufiya that's not shirk, but it's bid'ah. And it's not major bid'ah like that going around the grave or making dua to the one who's in the grave. It's bid'ah, but it's not major. They're saying in unison, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, 1,000 times. That's bid'ah, but it's not major bid'ah. So a masjid who's teaching Shi'ism, Sufiya, Qadriya, any of the groups, your action has nothing to do with the decree of Allah. Allah, that's the Qadriya. Your actions are separate from the decree of Allah. Allah has nothing to do. He doesn't even know what you're doing until after you do it. That's the group called the Qadriya. That's major kufr. But if they're not teaching that, they're teaching some other aspects of their religion. Because that's what it is. They made their own religion. They call it Islam. It's their own deen. Ikhwan Muslimin, Jama'at Tabligh. As long as you just praying in that masjid, and you're not praying behind somebody, because that's another issue. If you're praying behind somebody, you know he believes that way, which is major kufr, your salat is not accepted. If you know he believes that the Quran was sent to Fatima, and she gave it to Ali, the Quran that Muhammad got is not the real Quran, you cannot pray behind that imam, your salat will not be accepted. Some of them believe that. What if they just simply say, Ali should have been the one after the Prophet died, but they don't believe that the Quran was sent to Fatima and she gave it to Ali? Then they're Shia, they have bid'ah, but the bid'ah is minor. So even though they're teaching that bid'ah is minor, even though they're teaching that which is filthy, you can pray in that masjid and get up and roll out. Because your obligation to answer the call to prayer in the masjid supersedes the bid'ah that they're teaching. And that's what the Prophet was asked in the Hadith in Bukhari about the one who is disobedient to Allah. And this includes the one who's teaching bid'ah. This is a disobedient person. He's a fasiq, meaning he went outside obedience to Allah. He disobeyed Allah knowingly. They said, can we pray behind him? The Prophet said, فَلَكُمْ وَعَلَيْهِمْ. Your salat will be for you good, and their bid'ah will be upon them. That means pray and roll out. And when I Shaikh Mukbil this, he said, so as long as they don't harm you, he said it's better for you to open your own masjid on the sunnah. But if you can't find one, and you don't have the ability to open one, and those people, bid'ah is not major bid'ah. Like again, praying to the grave. Like again, believing that that person has some ability to take your dua to Allah. Like the one who believes the major types of kufr and bid'ah, and he's the imam. He knows he believes that. You heard him say it. You can't pray behind him. And if there's a grave in the masjid, you can't even pray in the masjid, whether it's behind him or you praying alone. The grave in the masjid, you can't pray in it at all. The masjid with no grave, he's a person of major innovation. You can't pray behind him. But you can pray in that masjid when he finishes and your salat is good. So the question, simply because they teach bid'ah in the masjid, is it enough to say don't pray in that masjid? The answer is no. Based on the hadith of the Prophet. For them is their bid'ah, and for you is your salah. The Prophet clearly mentioned that. So as long as the bid'ah is not major, so as long as it's not major, that will take you outside of Islam, like the grave worshiper or praying behind the one who his bid'ah, his aqidah is major. He believes he should pray to Allah and the Prophet. That's major bid'ah. And his Shaikh from synagogue. That's major bid'ah. You can't pray behind that man. You have to wait till he taslim and then you pray over there with your people by yourself. Don't pray behind him. Don't let him lead you in salah. Why? Because it's bid'ah, his aqidah, and it's also his worship now because it's praying to Allah. The messenger and his Shaykh is major bid'ah. And it includes kufr and shirk at the same time. Can't pray behind him. Can't pray behind him. And likewise, the grave in the masjid. You can't step foot in that masjid. But if it's minor bid'ah, then you can pray in that masjid. How do we know? Because the Prophet said, وَلَكُمْ وَعَلَيْهِمْ. For you is your salat as the followers, and that imam who has bid'ah, this minor or major sins, if he drinks or he gambles, his sin, well, we're going to erase the drinking part. But if he gambles, he's making zina, he's dancing in the disco, and he steals, almost time he lies, he's a con man. Salah is good behind him. Any sin outside of major shirk, and I'm going to add drinking because the one who drinks his salah is not accepted. For all you brothers, Allah Mustaan, who drink and get high, afallah anna wa ankum. May Allah pardon us and you. لكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تقبل الصلاة شارب الخمر أربعين يوما أو كما قال. The one who is drinking or getting high, his salah is not good for 40 days. Well, he said أربعين يوما, 40 days means 40 days and nights. While the obligation is still there. Imagine you still got to go to work to keep your job, but for 40 days you're on suspension without pay. You still got to go. You suspended, meaning from your regular job where you get paid, but you still got to show up voluntarily, because if you don't, then you'll lose the job indefinitely. Can you imagine that? That's the person who still has to pray 5 times a day, but because he was drinking, the salah is not accepted. Her salah is not accepted. So what's the point? You see this issue when we talk about the issue of division, the issue of bid'ah. Because this in itself, again, to make something bid'ah is bid'ah. To pray in those masajid where they teach deviation, then some of the brothers who claim Salafiyya and their shuyukh, who are from the Salafi movement, that the ulama have talked against during their time, Shaykh bin Baz, Shaykh al-Albani, Shaykh Uthaymeen, and Shaykh Mukbil all talked against the Salafi movement. Salafiyya is a way of looking at the text and practice. It's not a group or people who are a movement and it's exclusive for them, and if you don't pay your dues and get down with what they say, then you're off of it. That's not Salafiyya. That's not the way of those scholars who taught the da'wah of the first 3 generations. So what we have now is a homemade bid'ah. They added some powdered milk, some instant egg, some vanilla flavor, and it tastes good, and they put a big S on the box, and it said Salafiyya. And that is, don't pray in that masjid, don't pray in this masjid, don't pray in that masjid. Why? Okay? It said because they're on bid'ah. You said, well, what's the bid'ah? Well, I don't know, but I know they're on bid'ah. You guys didn't kidding me. You have to bring your delil if you're truthful. You can't just make a claim like that. Well, the brothers, they said it, it's a list. Are you serious? A list? That's what you make when you go to the grocery store. A list? What about the hadith of the Prophet? For you as your salat is good, and their minor bid'ah is on them. What about that? So to make it bid'ah, to pray in a masjid that's upon deviation is bid'ah itself. Because the sunnah is, from the hadith of Bukhari, pray in that masjid, so as long as there's no grave again in the masjid. So as long as the person you're praying behind, you know that his i'tiqad, his way of believing is bid'ah kubra, is major bid'ah. What do we say? Major bid'ah. Again, he believed in his salat, he calls on Allah, the Shaikh and the Prophet. He puts the Shaikh after Allah. The Prophet is last. This is major bid'ah, but this is the bid'ah that take you outside of Islam, because you're making shirk. As soon as you pray to Allah and the Prophet is shirk. What about you put your Shaikh in between Allah and the Messenger? You don't think that's major shirk? Yeah. So you know this is how this guy he believes. He's from synagogue. You can't pray behind him. But when he taslim, then you can walk in the masjid and pray on the side. Don't pray, don't let him lead you, meaning pray behind him. Don't let him lead the janazah. La yajuz. The masjid has a grave. We don't have to worry about that in America. But when you cross the water, they got graves in the masjid. Masjid like some of these cathedrals with a grave in it. And he was the great sheikh that they used to worship when he was alive, and now they continue to worship him while he's dead. Can't pray in the masjid. But minor bid'ah, you can pray in the masjid. You don't have to take the knowledge from them, which is a whole nother issue. Can you take knowledge from an innovator? That's a whole nother issue. Some scholars said no. Some scholars said yes. From amongst them is Shaykh Mukbil. He said yes. Imam Mukbil. Why did he say that? Because he's talking about the one who practiced innovation, but he's truthful. He's not going to deceive you. He's practicing innovation, but you want to learn Arabic. He's just going to teach you Arabic. And he's not going to give you examples to trick you, to teach you his methodology through the Arabic language. He's not going to do that. He's a trustworthy individual. But he just got some problems the way he believes. But it's not major. He believes right, but it has some bid'ah that he practices. Shaykh said you can learn from that person, especially if you don't have the knowledge. You're in need of that knowledge. You need to learn how to read the Quran. You chopping it up like chopped meat. When you pray, we don't know if you're singing African old folk tales or you're reciting the Quran. Recitation horrible. The man, he makes bid'ah. He believes you should say in unison every night, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, 1,000 times. You'll be blessed. 1,000 times, La ilaha illallah, your sins will be removed. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, 1,000 times. You'll become more righteous. Not you say it 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times when you become one with Allah. Which one is major bid'ah? To say it and be blessed or become one with Allah? One with Allah. So you can't pray behind him. But the one who has bid'ah is not major kufr or shirk. Allah, you can pray behind him. You can also take knowledge from him. He's known to be the Shaykh of Tajweed. You know how many people we studied like that from in Egypt? But we wouldn't take nothing else from him. And right now today, all those people who saying you can't learn from an innovator, they still have problems in Al-Fatiha. And we memorize Baqarah, Al-Imran, Nisa, Ma'idah, Allah Akbar, Kabir. MashaAllah. Allah Akbar. So the point here is that this is how you make something bid'ah. By making it false, a false claim. You're making it not part of the religion when it's part of the religion. So praying in a masjid where they teach something that may not be correct, it's not bid'ah. But that particular group, they made it bid'ah. It's not from the sunnah to pray in that masjid. Sunnah is praying in the masjid where the people on the da'wah. So I'm supposed to pray in the street rather than come in the masjid with the cup beer, that they don't say, well, we're Salafi masjid. That's to be kidding. So this, when we talk about the issue of bid'ah is the second thing the Shaykh he mentioned in his book, that the shaitan will make people and he follow the bid'ah, but he would dress it up so they don't see it to be bid'ah. He would dress it up so they don't see it to be bid'ah. Now, also, from amongst the issues when you talk about this issue of bid'ah, and he's feeling that a person has to be followed in everything. That a person has to be followed in everything. And the Prophet, he mentioned this issue that the people will come and they will call you to a way that's not from my sunnah. And they will claim that the sunnah. Prophet, he mentioned this. So this is another way of bid'ah. That the Shaykh, he said, and you quote, Allah said, his messenger said, yeah, but what the Shaykh said. You put the person's statement up over Allah and his messenger. Again, this is a type of bid'ah. None of the people did this from the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, Ittiba' Tabi'een. And if they did some mistakes and things like that, wallahi, it was not accepted. You have the narration of Abdullah Ibn Abbas, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. A person, he came and asked, how do you make Hajj? Do you make Hajj with Umrah or you just make Hajj by itself? Because you have three different ways that you make Hajj. You make Hajj by itself. You make Hajj, then you come out of your state of sanctity, and then you go back into the state of sanctity at another time, and then you make Umrah. Then you have the Hajj where you make Umrah first, and then we'll make Hajj along with that Umrah. So they said, which one do we do? Do we make Hajj by itself or with Umrah? So Abdullah Abbas, he said, the Prophet ﷺ commanded us to make Hajj with the Umrah. They said, well, Abu Bakr and Umar said that you make the Hajj by yourself. Abdullah ibn Abbas became angry. He said, you Shaykh, أن تنزل عليكم حجابة من السماء أقول لكم قال رسول الله وتقول قال أبو بكر وعمر. He said, I am afraid that Allah is going to send down right now, rain down stones from the sky on your heads to destroy you. I told you that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you have the nerve to tell me Abu Bakr and Umar said? You can't take somebody's statement and put it over the book of Allah. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ. Do you believe in part of the book and another part you disbelieve in? You can't do it. This is a bid'ah that we're dealing with today, and wallahi, the shaitan has dressed it up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. So, I'm going to go back quickly. Luzum al-Jama'ah. The shaitan has tricked you with regards to holding to the Sahaba. Jama'ah means Sahaba. Holding to the statements of the fuqaha, meaning not following ignorance, going to the people of knowledge to learn. فَاسْأُلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Asking the people of knowledge when you don't know. But another bid'ah that they made, you got to have to ask the Shaykh for everything. Allah said, ask the people of knowledge when you don't know. When you know, why do you have to ask somebody? I'm going to call the Shaykh, say, Shaykh, how many rak'ah do I pray before dhuhr? Shaykh said 2 or 4. How many after? 2 or 4. Jazakumullah khayran. But I already know that. In the caller section, you get Shaykh. Is it permissible for me to drink a cooler? There's only 2% alcohol in it. Shaykh, la yajuz, haram alayk. Allahumma musta'an. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. What did he say? The Shaykh said, wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh. Oh. You don't even know Arabic. Somebody got to translate for you. Can I drink the cooler that's only 2%? I think you already know that. It's haram. Allah said, فَاسْأُلُوا أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ. This is the condition. إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. If you don't know. And then Allah said, بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالزُّبُرِ. And He have to give you the evidence and show you where He got it It's another bid'ah though. You gotta call a sheikh for everything. You teach it from the book. Is that book from the word? The same thing that they learn, that's what they teach us. Why have to have a book and for page to page, the shaykh said, the shaykh said, the shaykh said, the shaykh. It's okay, the shaykh said. But you don't find ulama always saying the shaykh said. Sometimes they refer to shuyukh in their time. They always refer to shuyukh who died. But they don't always read from a sheikh who's alive. The sheikh said, the sheikh said. No. Because that's what made him a sheikh. Studying with his shuyukh those books, that now he can use the same tools. So if I'm reading and I'm teaching now, they say, well, was he teaching? Who is he teaching from? I'm teaching from the ulama that taught me, and the books and the principles that you learned, and the qawaid and the usul and the foundations that they taught us to use. And if the sheikh was sitting here, he would say at the end, Zallahu khairan Shaykhana Ukkasha, hafidhahullahu ta'ala, he would praise him. And if there's a mistake, he said, well, I can fihi tanbihain, but I have two things I want to correct. Khalas, that is. But they made this again a bid'ah. To learn. They got the people scared to learn, man. And then when the sheikh says something, you just take it, you just take it, you just take it. No. So that's the first thing. The sheikh he mentioned, the shaitan will get you as it relates to division, where you have been commanded to hold on to the Sahaba, those Tabi'een, those Itba Tabi'een, and the teachings of the people of knowledge, Fuqaha, wal Muhaddithin, without being extreme. The second thing, bid'ah. He has dressed up bid'ah to where it's okay. So you indulge in bid'ah. And he makes sunnah, yani something that's irrelevant to you. The third thing, yani the shaitan, yani will make you have a this word in the Arabic world, and to not be afraid, the tahrir, to not warn against the fitna of Iblis. Because like in the beginning, he said, you know, the reason for writing this book is so people be aware of the fitna. So shaitan, the third trick is to make you not want to learn about and warn against the fitness of himself, Iblis. So, you don't need to learn that. We should be learning something beneficial. This is beneficial. But the third trick, to make you shy away from a tahzir, when Iblis to be aware and to be afraid of his tricks and plots, then one of his tricks is to get you to think that that's okay, don't worry about that. When you should be learning about his tricks and his plots, the Allah said he's an enemy, so treat him as an enemy. How you going to treat him as an enemy, you don't know. The fourth thing is the shaitan, he will trick you, he will trick you by covering things or making things appear to you in a way that they're not. And also deception. Make something appear like the Prophet said, لا تصدقوا أهل الكتاب ولا تكذبوهم. Don't believe the people of the book and don't disbelieve and deny what they say. Jews and Christians, the Muslim, cannot take what they say and we cannot reject what they say. The Prophet said, because if you deny them, you might deny something that's true. And if you believe them, you may believe something that's falsehood. So we say we believe that books were sent to them, we believe that prophets came to them, but we don't take what they say except it's confirmed by the Quran and the Sunnah. If Quran and the Sunnah confirms it, then we take it. If it doesn't confirm it, we don't take it. Why? Because one of the tricks of the shaitan is to get you by way of making you have talbis, to make something look the way that it's not, to make it look okay when it's not okay, and to make it look alluring. So that's the fourth thing. Shaitan will get you by his plots and making things look the way that they're not. He will change it. As they said, the one who was truthful will look like the liar, and the liar will look like the truthful. Now, so it's the fourth thing, to deceive you as it relates to talbis or the war, to make you tricked by making and presenting things to be okay to you that's not okay, and making things look alluring to you. Number 5, it will trick you as it relates to qaida the other religions. Qaida wa adinat. This qaida wa adinat, it means rules and regulations, like what we just talked about with people of knowledge. Shaykh Mukbil, he said that the ulama, they on 3 levels. He said there some people don't respect them at all. The 3 conditions the people are in, 3 levels about scholars. The first one, people don't respect them at all. The second one, he said people respect them, but they're extreme with them. They put them on a level that they shouldn't be. Everything they say they take. They even take that statement of his without a proof. They take his statement against the Quran and the Sunnah. They follow him and whatever that he does out of emotion. That's the second situation or level of people of knowledge with regards to interaction. And then the third one, he said, that people respect them, love them, take knowledge from them, but they don't raise them to a level of sanctity, that they can make mistakes and that we don't follow them and their mistakes. So the 5th thing, as it relates to a qaida and this is principles and adyan, deens, then he tricks you on that. And that's what it's saying, one united religion now. They've been pushing that thing, we're all religions of faith and we're all Abrahamic, and let's hold hands with Reverend Fatback and Deacon Fishbone and Mayor Kahani and Imam and Ahmed, and all pray together. That's the trick of the shaitan. And they have no problem telling you they're not Muslim, they believe that Jesus is Lord, but you can't tell them that it's shirk. They have no problem telling you if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. Just believe. But you can't tell them, no, Islam is the only way. No. Allahumma musta'an. They put ice in your cup, and their cup is full of fire and ashes. So with regards to qawaid, deen, and principles, he plays with the people. Allahumma musta'an. Like the issue we mentioned, can you pray in a masjid simply that teaches something wrong? Yes. As long as you're not praying behind that person whose levels to major kufr or shirk or bid'ah, or that masjid has a grave, yeah, you can pray in it. But they made the qawaid, you can't pray in that masjid if you're off it. Because they don't teach the correct thing. They don't respect the scholars. Or they on the way of the Salaf, or they Salafi. They're not on the Sunnah. I can't pray in that masjid. So I'm going to pass this masjid where the adhan is being called and go 5 miles across town to pray in a house that, maybe 10 people can fit in. And some masajid is small like that. 10 people fit in it, that's the first row. And second row, you might get 3 people and that's it. The women can't even get in that masjid. They'll tell you to go past the masjid that has accommodation for everybody. Air conditioned, nice carpet, hammams. You go to the masjid that, 6 or 7 people in the front row, 2 people behind them, and, the toilet is out of order. You got to go pee in a can behind the building or a milk jug, and you know what I'm saying? Sometimes the door's locked and the brother's got the key asleep. Allahumma musta'an. So that masjid, they're not teaching the right. We got to be kidding. 7, the dhikr talbis ala ulama wal ilm. 7, where the shaitan, he tricks you as it relates to ilm and ulama. Ilm and ulama. And sometimes people say, oh, well, these scholars, man, how can they do that? Here, the Shaykh is bringing this chapter. He mentions the talbis al-iblis ala al-ilm wal-ulama, how he deceives the people with knowledge and scholars. Or he makes deception in the knowledge and with the people of knowledge. We had this problem yesterday where the brother, we were talking about the history in New Jersey, because some brothers, Allah Musta'an, they will go away from Jersey City to pray in Masjid Rahmah. You know how many masajid? And other brothers going to get mad and hear it and whatnot, so what? They already know, ain't nobody scared. We just talking because we have to clarify. And we don't mention about Masjid Rahmah or anybody or any place because we're not a people of fitna. But Al-Tabarak wa Ta'ala command us to be in al-haq and al-batil. We have to when someone asks us. So the talk was about the importance of brotherhood. I'm going to finish these points and we'll stop here and we'll finish the other 8 points tomorrow because it's 13 points. And ulama. So in talking about that, I mentioned the history how in the masjid that's called Bradford Place, they were trying to sell it and put the Muslims out. They were protesting. This is going on for a long time, some months or maybe a year or so downtown Newark. So the brothers, Allah Musta'an, they said, yeah, some from amongst them said that's good. They're going to lose the building. Allah's punishing them because their aqeedah is not right. You know how many people came through that place in the 80s and 90s? I accepted Islam there. Shaykh Ahmed Salam was the imam, a young imam from Egypt, but he was sent by Saudi Arabia. I had another African sheikh. His name was Anis Khalid. He was a Qadi from Africa. And you go there, and them boys back then was break you off the sunnah like it was nothing before, man. And I remember Zayd Shaikh used to come from Connecticut. He was on the sunnah then. He's a Sufi now, clearly. But Zayd back then, every talk used to say, Qala Allah, wa qala Rasulullah, wa qala Sahabatu, wa qala Tabi'een, wa ulama hadhihi ad-din. He fired up. Allah, he said, the messenger said, Sahaba said, Tabi'een, and the ulama of this deen. When Zayd came, nobody missed the talk, because they knew it was going to get broke off the sunnah and the manhaj of the Salaf al-Salih. They weren't calling it the manhaj of the Salaf al-Salih, but like Shaykh Mukbil, he said that the da'wah ila kitabillah wa ila sunnati rasulillah. The da'wah was calling to the book of Allah and the sunnah of his messenger. That's what Shaykh Mukbil said. That's the da'wah of al-Islam. He also said, as-salafiyya huwa ad-da'wah ila al-kitab wa sunnah ala faham al-salaf. It's to call to the book of the sunnah the way that the salaf understood it. Salaf includes the prophet. When you say the salaf, you don't start at Sheikh bin Baz or Fawzan. You gotta be crazy. Bin Baz is dead, so he's salaf. Fawzan is alive. You can't say he's salaf yet. When you die, then they're your salaf. They came before you. They dead. So you can say the salaf. You stop at Yahya ibn Ma'in. The salaf. Muhammad ibn Sirin. The salaf. Rabi ibn Anis. The salaf. Yahya Qattan. The salaf. Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Sufyan al-Thawri. The salaf. Imam Malik ibn Anas, Imam al-Dar Hijra, Salaf, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Imam Ahmad al-Sunnah, Salaf, Imam al-Shafi'i, Salaf, Abi Hanifa. This is Salaf. You don't start there, you don't stop there. The Sahaba Salaf, Abu Hurairah, Salaf, Abdullah ibn Umar, Salaf, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Salaf, Aisha radhiyallahu anha, Salaf, wa Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Salaf, أبي أمامة سلف وكذلك بارك الله فيكم أنس بن مالك سلف كل هؤلاء من السلف all of them from the سلف سلمة من السلف عتية من السلف حفصة من السلف خديجة من السلف كلهم من السلف والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعوسي من السلف فالسلف is from the top of them from the سلف. When he was going to die, Fatima, she was crying. He said, "Ya Fatima, ana ni'ma salaf al-laki." He said, I'm the best seller for you. Meaning I'm the best one to die and leave you behind. He called himself seller. I'm Nabi Sallallahu Hadith Sahih. That's a description. Let me say, Ibadullah, yani, Salihin, righteous servants of Allah. Allah said, wa Ibad al-Rahman, yamshuna fil al-Kawna, the servants of Ar-Rahman. These are descriptions. Ibadullah Mukramin, they are noble worshippers of Allah, the angels. Allah called us Muslim, called us Mu'mineen, called us yani, Ibadullah. Allah said, yani, called us Rafi'in, those who bow. Allah wants to ask. So why do people tripping when you're using terminology? Because they're using the terminology to put the people in a box, to marginalize, and to make a movement, and to make this one off it, this one on. This is the problem. This is the problem. So we're talking about this history because people need to know there was a history before Masjid Rahma. Rather, Masjid Rahma is a product of that masjid that they claim is on Bid'ah, Masjid Ahlul Sunnah, which is the Masjid of Imam Abu Muslim. Who that was not the beginning. The beginning was before Dawood Adib, before him with Ahmad Burhani. Many people don't even know who Ahmad Burhani, who the Shaikh is. The best that came out of Masjid Taqwa in Brooklyn. Yeah, he was the Imam before Dawood Adib. These people paid dues, man. These people paid dues, struggled to establish Islam in Brooklyn. Then they left and went to other places. They came to East Orange. But even before that, we was praying Masjid Muhammad on South Orange Avenue. Before that, they don't know. Praying Masjid Muhammad. Big rats and everything in the ghetto. Masjid Muhammad. Claire Muhammad School. They think everything is just Masjid Rahman, Masjid Rahman. And to be honest with you, when Imam Abu Wais became the Imam in 2001, he used to talk bad about what was going on in the north. He didn't put Masjid Rahma on a pedestal because Masjid Rahma was there as a break-off from Abu Muslima. Had the people not listened to the fatwa that we said yesterday, and the brother got mad. He asked me about Shaykh Rabi'a. He said, what do you think? This question and answer. After he heard the history talk and the highlight about Newark and East Orange, he said, I got a question. So, okay, what's the question? What do you think? You know, some people, they disrespect Shaykh Rabi'a. He couldn't even say his name, right? He said Shaykh Rabi. First, his name is not Shaykh Rabi, and not Shaykh Rabi, it's Shaykh Rabi'a. Sheikh Rabi. Who the heck is Sheikh Rabi? You can't say his name right. But you want to argue about it. What do you say about Sheikh Rabi? So I put my head down, scratch, try to be humble. I'm going to stop. Hello. He said, yeah, you know, people disrespect the Sheikh. They're saying that the Sheikh is senile now because of his sugar diabetes. And then he went into this whole rant about different things. All of us connect Shaykh Rabi'a, this, that. So I said, okay, let him talk for like 30 seconds, a minute. I said, what's the question? He was an older brother too. That was the sad part. He said in the Dars, we talked about brotherhood. We gave some pointers about the importance of brotherhood. I talked, Naeem talked, how you can strengthen and maintain the brotherhood. All of that was in one ear and out the other because he wanted to pull this crap, which they normally do in the masjids that they claim is not on it. They want to shine and they want to talk about stuff because those brothers not running around saying Shaykh Rabi'a, so they feel some kind of way. So that was his opportunity. So I said, listen, I said, to be honest with you, there were some scholars that when you look in the books about them being scholars of hadith and the early part of their life, the hadith were accepted because his memory was strong. He was a righteous person. He was known for sitting with people of knowledge. He was known to be a person of knowledge. But then in the latter part of his life, his hadith were not accepted because he lost his memory. Does that make sense? The early part of my life, I'm a scholar of hadith. I'm known, people travel all over to take from me. My shuyukh are known, my hadith are checked. I have a good memory. I also have it written down. As I get 89 years old, my memory is bad. I start to mix up the hadith. I take this wording and leave it and add this word. Those hadith can't be accepted in my latter part of my life, but all of the hadith that's recorded in books from the earlier part and the middle part of my life, the sahih, you take it.
Exactly.
I gave him that example. Again, he asked me a question. I'm answering him from 31 years of being Muslim. That son that's sitting right there, Nasallahu yubarik fihi. When yubarik fi dinihi wa dunyahi. May Allah bless his deen life that he has to worship Allah by and his dunya life. Ameen. May Allah give him righteous wife and offsprings that be qurrat ayun, that be a pleasing to him. وَجَعَلْهُمْ مُتَقِينَ إِمَامًا, and make them leaders in the land. Ameen. That son that was with me as a young boy, who's a grown man now in Egypt, Yemen, and America. That same son that's here sitting, when you talk about this issue, he knows that many people of knowledge, when they got old, couldn't cough up the knowledge they had when they were young. He knows that from experience. Yes. And I've been, not to brag, with many ulama, not just Shaykh Mukbil, many ulama. I don't talk about it because it's not about personality and where I've been, how much I got. No. But it's enough knowledge and experience to know that I'm not tripping when I'm saying this, talking about the Shaykh. He felt I'm taking shots at the Shaykh.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Wow. So I said, Akhi, I'm not taking shots at the Shaykh. I'm clarifying what you asked me. This is in the books. I said, if I wanted to, I could feel some kind of way. I'm being just. I said, because that same Shaykh we're talking about, he is the same Shaykh that made this big division in America and our community. Our children, most of them, are struggling with Islam or don't love Islam because what they watch from us from the 90s to now. Households are broken in half. This wife went this way because she's with this group, and this brother went this way because he's with that group. Our witness brothers pulling the guns on one another. You calling me a kafir because of the boycott in America. I witnessed good brothers in the first row. Where'd they go? He's strung out on crack. I witnessed good brothers who made Hajj and Umrah. They in the rank every morning for Fajr. He's just spiritual now. I witnessed brothers and sister. That sister's not a Muslim no more. She don't cover because of this fitna. The brother, he got upset. Oh, you're attacking the Shaykh. No, Shaykh Rabi. Al-Albani said he's the Imam of Jarh wa Ta'adil. I said, Akhi, do you know Arabic? He said, I said, because to understand that issue, you have to know the Arabic language. What is Imam? And does that mean he's the only one? I said, that same statement, nobody talks about it. Sheikh Al-Albani mentioned Sheikh Rabi' and Sheikh Mukbil in the same statement. They never talk about it. When he was asked about those two, Sheikh Rabi' and Sheikh Mukbil, those who criticize and talk against them, Al-Albani said, the one who talks about these two men, imma sahib al-jahl or imma sahib al-ahwa. Either he's a man who's ignorant or a man of desires, meaning when he used desires, Sheikh Al-Albani is saying a man of bid'ah Why? Because people who talked about them back in the day before the fitna was because of ignorance, or they was from the groups of bid'ah. And he said, Rabi ibn Hadi huwa min a'immat al-jarh wa ta'dil. He's from the leaders who are Imam Jarh wa Ta'dil. This is the statement of Imam al-Albani. What does this mean? This means that he is from the people who's leading in that skill to go in the books and look at the chain of hadith and make a correction and analyze the people in the chain today. But Shaykh al-Albani wasn't talking about he criticized somebody in real life, not in the book, but in real life. Anwar's a muqtada. He has to be 100% because he's the imam, so everybody get behind him. Shaykh al-Albani didn't mean that. He didn't mean that. And even Shaykh Rabi' himself in 2013 or 14 gave a talk. 8 minutes and I think 26 seconds. And in this talk he said, وَأَنَا لَسْتُ بِإِمَامٍ in Jarh Ta'dil. He said, and I'm not the Imam of Jarh Ta'dil. He said, أَنَا أَكْرَهُ هَذَا الْكَلَامِ, and I despise this type of praise. Why did he say that? Al-Albani said that about him in the early 90s. Why is he saying this in 2000s? Because of the fitna that was made. Just like the Prophet ﷺ, when the Sulh Hudaybiyah, they were going to make the peace treaty, he told them, write Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the peace treaty. They stopped and they said, no, you can't write Muhammad ibn Abdullah. He said, because if we believe you the messenger, then that means we can't fight against you. So Ali said, okay, just erase that part. So Prophet ﷺ, he said, so we got to erase that part. Just put Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Ali said, no, man, we're not erasing nothing. Leave that. We ain't going for it. We're the messenger. Prophet ﷺ, in one narration, the people said he took, looking from Wahi. He can't read or write. Right. He erased Rasulullah on his own, and then the stamp, the ring that had his name on there, and they changed the stamp. They had to write, and he, without the stamp, just signed his name because the Prophet himself erased Muhammad Rasulullah from the writings that they wrote. So the stamp couldn't be applied to that document because the stamp is already engraved Muhammad Rasulullah. Prophet himself didn't know how to write, he was able to erase it. Ali, the same thing, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when the fitna about is he the imam of the people doing his fitna, he told him, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said, erase that. The Khawarij, they said, okay, he's telling the people to erase it in his documents and not to call me that. He said, then if he's not Amir al-Mu'mineen, he must be Amir al-Kafirin. He must be a kafir. But Ali was removing the title because people were personality tripping. Shaykh Rabi', he did that because he realized all the fitna that had been made over the years, and the Shaykh is getting older, he wants the brothers to stop. Listen, in Joseph, he said that the Prophet ﷺ, in one hadith, he mentioned that the bid'ah will spread like the dog who has rabies when he bites you. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that the bid'ah will spread like the dog when he bites you has rabies. You know the dog, he's foaming at the mouth. He bites you, and rabies spread quick. So the Shaykh, he understood that. He said, and those people that have something to benefit the people with, then benefit the people. Stop going back and forth. He's on it, who's off it. He said that a lay person has no business doing anything but being quiet and learning. Wallahi, I didn't take that to this day. That advice of Shaykh Rabi' ibn Hadi Madkhali. I told him, I said, so you tripping when you talking about what Al-Albani said, because this is the script that they've been given. If somebody say something, say this. If somebody say that, say that. And that's all you need. That's your defense. That's not a defense. So like you don't know. You wasn't there. I was there. And this man made so much fitna, he took the whole Yemen and made it a place of bid'ah. How you make a whole country a place of bid'ah? A whole country? You ask them now, can you go to Yemen and learn? They said, no, it's a place of bid'ah. Not fi Salafi, fi Yemen. You gotta be kidding me. That's the same Shaykh, when Shaykh Mukbil died, he was on the phone, Shaykh Rabia, and he praised Shaykh Rabia's da'wah. He said, Shaykh Rabia mentioned on the phone, and Shaykh Rabia mentioned on the phone, I was there, he said, Shaykh Mukbil, يذكرنا بجهود السلف. He reminds us of the courage and the success that the Salaf were upon in his da'wah. Because the Shaykh, he wouldn't take nothing of worldly affairs. Shaykh was patient, just learning and giving the da'wah. Shaykh Mukbil, who was a man who was serious, not compromising to the governments. And the Shaykh who would stick to the way of the Salaf. So much so, when he was in Medina, he was considered Shaykh before he went to Yemen. And some people witnessed his talk in the Prophet's masjid, and they went up to him after there was some soldiers. And they said, where you from? They said, I'm from Yemen. He said, I'm from Yemen. They said, MashaAllah, Kalam Hassan. I said, Illa Shay'an Wahid. They said, you gave a great talk, except one thing. They said, Ya Thawbik Wasqan Fih. Say, your thobe is dirty. From the student of knowledge, from the people of ilm, you're supposed to look clean when you're in front of the people because they're watching you. If you wear dirty thobe and holy socks and your teeth green and your kufi dingy, they'll say, wow, that's how you should be, the Shaykh. You be clean. You got to make it where they want to look at you. Wow, he looks good. MashaAllah, the Shaykh. Nah, man, he look horrible. Woo. So they say, you give a great talk. One thing you thobe. The Shaykh, he said, my thobe is dirty because I only have one thobe and I wash it on Thursday for Jumu'ah. That was the Shaykh following the way of the Salaf man. Shaykh Mukbil, rahimahullah ta'ala. So Shaykh Rabia, when Shaykh Mukbil died, he said, out of all the scholars, he went back to Imam al-Shawkani and Imam al-San'ani and Abdul Razak. These are all scholars of the past, man. He went way back with him. He said, out of all of them, he said, nobody's da'wah spread single-handed on one individual's effort like it has successfully done for Shaykh Mukbil since the time that Mu'adh ibn Jabal came to Yemen. Do you understand the magnitude of that statement? Out of all of the people that came before Shaykh Mukbil as a person to give da'wah to his people, nobody had more effect in spreading the sunnah, spreading the kitab, the sunnah, the way of the Salaf al-Salih, purely, without any gulu, any extremism, any leaning towards this group and that group and this government. Nobody had more success, according to what Shaykh mentioned, which really, that's a hell of a statement, and we have to look at it and see, but it's close to being accurate. It says since the time of Mu'adh. Who sent Mu'adh to Yemen? The Prophet, man. And everybody just cried like babies, man. Cried like babies, man. The same man comes back. The same man comes back. Wasn't even a good 20 years after Shaykh Mukbil was dead, 15 or so. And it says, you can't take knowledge from nobody in the whole of Yemen. According to the home up to the aim, you gotta be kidding me. All of them are innovators. The whole Yemen? Al-Hajuri. وَمَنْ مَعَهُ, all of his students. Listen, everybody was Shaykh Yahya wasn't with those positions and stuff in the fitna that happened with Imam al-Hajjur. Point blank. We weren't with everything that Shaykh Mukbil said. That's robotic. Sometimes the Shaykh will say something, you have a different evidence. But you're talking about, you take a whole country off it. The brother was upset. But remember, he asked me the question. I said, and you talk about a new divide. What new divide, Akhi? This thing goes back to the 90s with us. Y'all talking about now. Some people arguing, the Shaykh you see now from sugar. Akhi, are you serious? This thing go back to the 90s. I was upset. I said, I could legitimately have a problem with the Shaykh, but I'm being just. I mean, dua for him. Allah heal him, pardon him, rectifies it. I said, listen, when you get up in age, you start trying to fix this stuff because you know you're on your way out. So the Shaykh dealt with this a long time ago. Y'all still tripping? I said, it's so bad and sad that when the Shaykh do die, it's going to be like he's alive because y'all ignorant people, so miskeen, y'all going to keep this fitna going. Yeah. So this was, from Jersey City yesterday, and it was a big thing. Of course, I was louder. My voice was raised. I'm more calm now. I was pounding. Brothers was trying to calm me down. I said, no, I'm speaking because he just mentioned a bunch of falsehood that people won't be confused. I can't be quiet because he's cutting me off and well, what about you? No, I got to rock. So when it was over, some people said, don't let him keep you from coming back. I said, hey, I was in Yemen. You think that's going to stop me from coming back because a man was tripping? Man, he tripped me. And then I was smiling, and it was over, when the brothers thanked me, and then they talked about how they experienced stuff before. And then after about 20 minutes, that brother came back and was outside, and he said, I was the brother you were speaking with. I want to apologize. I'm sorry, I was wrong, even though we disagreed, this and that. And I gave him a hug, and I said, I was yelling, forgive me. I said, but when it comes to the haq, that's what we're doing around here. We got to clarify. You asked me, and when people come with falsehood, we have to be upset before this issue for the sake of Allah, man. Y'all don't realize. In conclusion, I told the brother, I said, listen, I had a brother, I mentioned this story before. He cried, man, in my arms because the brothers convinced his wife that he was a muqtadi. Even Naeem yesterday in the dars, he said, and I remember this happened, Shaykh Tahir, he told this story too before. He said there was a friend he had. He called him, he said, I got an issue, go to the Shaykh. Tahir went to the Shaykh, told him the issue. The Shaykh said, okay, tell him to call me back. And so he said, the Shaykh can't deal with it. He said, you got to call him back. So he said, that person, you're right?
Yeah.
Was dealing with an issue where his wife wouldn't sleep with him, wouldn't have sex with him. The kids were boycotting him along with the wife because you listen to Shaheed Muhammad, you'll take from this one and that one, and I don't. That's how the fitna was in this man's house. In his own crib for a year. So he called Shaykh Tahir to get the Shaykh to, deal with it, give him, some type of help. And the Shaykh told him, I'm busy, this, that, tell him call back. But he didn't know the nature of the thing. So what the brother did, he said, okay, we're going to go on Umrah. He didn't tell the wife nothing about, he tried to call the Shaykh and couldn't get through. We're going to go on Umrah. Try to make some, worship, try to, ask Allah for help, maybe try to repair our relationship, but we got to go and make some ibadah first, get our hearts right. So they go. So Shaitari said when he get to Medina, he calls him. He said, listen, he said, that Shaykh, no, astaghfirullah. The Shaykh dealt with him, the guy. He answered this question, but he didn't answer it the way the brother needed. So he sent Tahir back. The Shaykh said, tell him that's it. I'm not dealing with the question no more. I gave him the advice, that's it. Something similar to that. So now he's in the Mamlaka. He calls Tahir and said, listen, you got to take me to that Shaykh. So Tahir said, man, but the sheikh was upset the last time. I can't go to the sheikh, and it's disrespect for the scholar, and he's going to be mad at me. He said, just tell him you got some, important stuff, you got to guess something. We got to get to the sheikh. So Tar said, okay. So he went to he told the sheikh at Salat time, he said, Sheikh, I need to see you for a brief moment tonight, So he said, okay, no problem, just brief. He said, all right. So he didn't tell the sheikh who was bringing the guests. You have the brother and you have the sister. You go to the house, not its children or whoever made to the sheikh expecting them. They go in. And he said, oh, sheikh, I got some people just came in from America. He said, oh, mashallah, hello, sahaba. So they sit down. So he said, sheikh, the brother has an issue. So he started to explain to the sheikh. Halfway through explaining to the sheikh looked up like he remembered this before. Looked at Tahir, looked at the brother, looked at the sister. He said, hold on. Shake his head like this. So then he started to give some advice. And as he was giving advice, he talked about fitna and this and that, and he said the sister started to cry. And the brother started to cry. And that was the end of the fitna. But look what the damage was in that household. Naeem told the story yesterday of the brother who, same thing, that sister, ended up leaving the brother. The brother in Charlotte, when I was in Charlotte, 2012, 13, I'm holding him like this, he's crying, I'm crying, my throat wet. He said, he convinced his wife, you can't be with a muqtadi, right? Your husband is a muqtadi, he's an innovator, because he listens to these people and taking these people, you on the da'wah to Salafiyya, right? And these were her friends' husbands. So number one, they out of line. Right. They got no business talking to, they friends, homegirl who, we give her some advice, she's a sheikh, but he was homeboys, like on the administrator of the masjid, but he's a bus driver and he's whatever. They common folk. They ain't no people you go to knowledge, but we running the da'wah, just common time. So the brother told me, said he came home one day and she left a note. That I got a caller from the masjid, you're an innovator, may Allah break your back, Kevin, like this. And then he found out maybe, after her menses or whatever, then one of them stinking dogs, they married her. Oh, how horrible is this? You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about ghulu being extreme for ilm and ulama, you see this point Ibn Jawzi brought is relevant right now today in our midst, because he get the shuyukh to start tripping. Wallahi, Shaykh Yahya is our Shaykh, we love him. I gave the brother this example to show, listen, Shaykh Yahya, he went astray on some issues. He's our Shaykh. And the etiquette of the Shaykh and his student, I can never say who a muqtadi, because he's my Shaykh. My son could say, Abi, I think that's wrong, but he can't say Anta Dar Mubin, because, I'm his father. Yeah, Abati, oh my father, this is the right of the parent. And the scholars, they are, Waratat al-Anbiya'i, they are, inheritors of the Prophet. We're like their children, you know what I'm saying? But if the Shaykh was wrong, I have to say he was wrong on a lot of issues. I know why he even had his da'wah. He said, I'm the only one carrying this da'wah. Are you serious? But that's how far the ghulu, shaitan, had Imam al-Hajuri. Had the biggest place on earth for da'wah to Salafiyya and the students. You got 11, 12,000 students, I think, from all over the world. People that 60, 70, 80 years old. Maybe hijrah, the place rocking 60 lessons a day. 60! No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 60 lessons a day. Can you imagine that? A day. 60. Not 6, not 16. 60 a day. between the durusa of the men and the women. Can you imagine that? 7 days a week, even on Eid. He's here, ask him. Even on Eid. He was a little boy, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. He left there when he was 10. Even on Eid, durus. You'd be so sick of the head, you'd be throwing it up. What's wrong with you? I'm sick from the head, over there. Allah. So, hey, I'm telling you. We just started to process this stuff 20 years later. Yeah. So what are you talking about? You know, nobody is infallible like that. You know, he said, I'm the Imam, in the jinn wal ins, Imam al-Thaqalain. So I'm the Imam of the jinn and the mankind. How'd you had the dalala? You're the Imam of the Thaqalain? You guys to be kidding me. That's the level that the shaitan will, you know, trick you and have you as an alim. Serious. Now he's humble. They love him in the Mamlaka. He's got Masjid Taqwa and Masjid Fatah that he teaches in. All of them love him. Ali Saleh, Ali Shaikh, who's the head of Waziratul Awqaf wal Ilm, the Ministry of Education. Yeah, they had him all on the radio and they love it, Hajj, because he's humble. Now he's just teaching him no fitna. He learned it from his lesson. Even he went back to Yemen, they built him a masjid in Ma'bar, and from the ground up, but he couldn't stay because the Houthis, they still want to kill him. Once they found out he was back, they said the bounty on his head, let's get him. They told him, it's too dangerous, Shaikh, you got to get out and go back to the Mamlaka. So he humbled himself, he's back in Mecca now. You know, I got my ear to the ground, and that's my Shaikh, I got to know what the deal is, you know. Make dua for him, you know. As they say, dua, not dua, dua. Make dua and dua, you know what I mean? You know? And stuff happened between him and the students. But the point is, you know, if we have to acknowledge that, how we can't acknowledge what happened with Sheikh Rabia. You know what I'm saying? So it's even Steven, it's being fair. And when the shaitan tricked you when it comes to these issues, then wallah, you have blinders or you won't see no other way. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take the blinders off. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the shaitan and his army and his crew. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us from knowledge, to give us that which is from sincerity and truthfulness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mend the brother and sisterhood around the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to strengthen our deen that we need so much. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for our shortcomings, forgive our ulama for the shortcomings, those who died, forgive them for the sins, make them good, those who are alive, rectify their affairs, and make them from those who are from the good doers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us this sitting. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in iman, increase us in taqwa, increase us in all of that which is good, and make us die the death of the righteous. Hada wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala abdillahi wa rasulih wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Anything I said of good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I seek no praise. Anything I said that's a mistake is from myself or the shaitan. Allah is free from it. Allahumma musta'an. Wa sallallahu sallam ala nabina Muhammad. Any questions around the topic? Questions, not essays, because I know the brothers say we have essays. I know this book, Shaikh. I know you know this book. I was in the penitentiary, and I hear what's the question? Oh yeah. Everything J clear, no question and answers. If not, alhamdulillah. I'm always happy when there's no question and answers.
I still have two questions.
Oh, you a Rabi'in?
Last.
Are you from the Rabi'in?
No.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I gotta ask this question because yesterday there was a loaded. If you say yeah, I'm gonna say I think you can ask me off the camera. Because it was a lot of fitness. It's on the Facebook. It didn't make no sense, you know. What the brother brought just to come back and apologize. That's the shaitan.
Right.
So I did that out of respect. And what I mean by that, someone who, whatever the sheikh he says that's in, and he's the imam, and everybody's off it, and I'm not dealing with that today. Hold on,
Just for clarification, you mentioned clearly a few times you can't pray in a masjid there. There's a grave there. What do you say about Masjid al-Nabawi?
The masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, the grave kharaj al-masjid. It's
Right.
outside the masjid. Laysa dakhilan fi masjid.
Right.
It's
Just
not in the time of the Prophet when he was alive, he lived in Aisha's house. Everybody knew he loved Aisha the most. So when he died, then she buried him in the house.
right.
Now, when the room runs out, more people, they have to do construction, they tore stuff down, they extended, they left his grave there, but they built the masjid around it. So when you walk in the masjid, you got to exit. Then his masjid is on the outside. The first gate is the Prophet.
Right.
Then next to him, Abu Bakr Siddiq, and then Ma'da,
Omar.
Umar Faruq, radiallahu ta'ala anhum. So it's outside the masjid. أبدا يكون قبر النبي داخل في مسجد. أعوذ بالله. It never could be the case. No.
Right. But I mean, as far as for clarification, like you said, because sometimes somebody might not know, like you said. So if it's under the same roof, even though it's boxed off, it's obviously outside of.
It's not under the same roof. It's clearly a door. When you, like the Roda, this part of the
Right,
masjid, the Prophet said, I have the Roda in the Jannah. This is a part that's, from the paradise, that this, area, if you pray in it, and you die, and you don't make sure, you go to Jannah.
Right.
Once you pray on the Roda, you go around, that exit right there,
Right.
you get on the marble. The masjid has carpet. Once you step on the marble, you're out the masjid.
Okay.
So it's clearly not in the masjid, not under the roof of the masjid. It's adjacent to the masjid, like the courtyard,
Right.
but it's not the masjid itself.
Okay.
Iwa. Jazakumullah khair.
Yeah.
So, and just adding on to that.
Adding on to that, the
Just
Shaikh
from-
Osama. It's about to be a
Yeah.
long night. He's knowledgeable, y'all. Osama in the house. Allah.
Just from an architectural perspective, is that why the green dome is above that area specifically?
Wallahi,
That was,
I don't know if that's what.
cause I was just asking, I was gonna ask you to confirm this, but that was during the.
But you
the
asked
argument?
when the question, or you add.
No, I'm trying to.
But he asked the question, and over and over. You gotta let him get his right first.
Oh, I thought, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah,
So the dome, Allahu Alam, if that's why they did that. I know Imam al-Albani, when he was alive, he was a little bit upset for some things, and he said that this is the Medina to Nabawiyah, Balad al-Tawheed. He said, then take out the bid'ah and bring back the sunnah. He was talking about the dome, because really the Muslims copied that from the Catholics on their church. It's really not from Islam, and those minarets, those tall things, really, that stuff is not from, it became like from the Ottoman Empire style. Now all the big masjids, when they build it, has got to have these minarets. Likewise, that dome is not really from the architect of Islam. They culturally brought that and added that to the masajid. So I don't know why they did it, to make it distinct from the rest of the masjid, to say this is not the masjid, this is, I don't know, Allahu A'lam. It's a good question. If you don't know, say Allahu A'lam, Allahu A'lam. So, Sheikh Shadi.
No, that's what I was gonna have you confirm from me. My understanding in answering this, or speaking to his question, is that I know it was a gift, or it was from the Ottoman Empire that they were building it, and it became such a norm that when Sheikh Albani, but not just him, but other scholarship would speak to that. It was the hikmah, it was the thing where it would be a hikmah where if you was to remove this, how up in arms the ummah would be, because for those not knowing or understanding, it would be something of contingent. So I think that's why it still remains.
Yeah, but his question was it put there to differentiate, as Sheikh Yusuf asked, from the masjid and not being the masjid, as it relates to like a part of they say a trademark or not what you call a landmark. And that was his question.
From my understanding, it was as a gift, and it was a distinction only in the fact that everybody believed that. I mean, green was a color that favored the prophet. So it was of that. Other than that, I mean, mashallah, that's why I was gonna ask you for the confirmation if you knew, because that's all I know. Or as far as that's concerned, when it goes, when it deals with it, it was just a point of unification.
Alhamdulillah. You know, even this whole issue about change and stuff. I mean, if it's going to make a fitna, we know the hadith of Aisha about the door of the Kaaba.
Right, exactly.
So it's not every time something is wrong, you change it, you got to weigh what's going to be the circumstance and consequence. So, Allah musta'an. Jazakumullah khair. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Tomorrow we got 7 more points. No, actually it's 13, so it's 6 tomorrow. And I'm going to be on time because I'm not traveling. I was traveling yesterday and then I had the gas. He has the right on me, you know, because he's the youth, a qarib, close relative, who I saw him. And he's my companion, you can see. It's a real version of me, small version. Check out the Lord. So, any more questions? Today we're going to be in Newburgh. What time is it now?
4 o'clock.
But I told him 5 o'clock.
You told him 5.
Well, they suggested 4, but I mean, you know, I tried to change it through Jamil, but you know how that's. So we could probably just go like you said, because we got to get gas. So can you go up and knock, tell your mom we got to go? Shaikh out the Lord. Inshallah. So any more questions around the topic is important. Context, this, that, and the third.
I have one more, but again, just for clarification, you said that obviously you're talking about, you know, praying at a masjid where they do shirk. I'm not like let me clarify this. Praying at the masjid. If you're a traveler, you go into a masjid and they're clearly doing something that's incorrect. You can't pray with them. You can wait there and then you can stop. But how would you know that if you're traveling? If you're traveling and you're coming through a town, you pray, you just join the Jama'at. After, let's say you find out after you pray, do you have to make up the salah? Or?
It depends on what it is. Again, the issue was the false principles, the qawad al-batila, that you only pray in a masjid that's a Salafi masjid.
Right.
Again, there's no, if you go to the old books of fiqh, because you got to go back. You can't start a contemporary books. You got to go all the way to the books of the past. You won't find, and work your way up to today, you won't find the term Salafi masjid. There's no such thing. That's a modern day term that they came up with. And then what does this mean? Like they said, we make it Hajj. They went on Hajj, and then the brother said, this is Salafi plane. What the hell? I mean, Salafi plane. The plane is on a manhaj. I mean, what do you mean? You know, this is the level of, you know, blue. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first thing. You have to pray in Salafi masjid. You're on a dial. You can't. Second thing is that if the masjid is known to be a regular masjid, then you go on the law here. You just pray. But most masajid, if it's a Sufi masjid, people know. They might even have it on the website. They say the Sufi halaqah and this and that, or you might see, you know, the names of the person that reflect Sufiya. You know what I'm saying? They say Wali, this, that, or they say Maulana. Those are terms that the Sufiya use. You know what I'm saying? And you know they have on their website halaqah, dhikr circle, this, that, whatever. And then I have no shame with it. You know, spiritual, this, that. I mean, so that today that's easy to find out. When you Google, you see what the masjid that they said we were a masjid of Quran and Sunnah. Tell you, then you pray there. They say we are Shia masjid. Shia masjid will say we are a Shia masjid. They're going to say that. They ain't going to sugarcoat it. And a masjid upon Sufiya, like you go Google now, Hamza Yusuf's Institute. I guarantee you're going to read something to say we're upon Sufiya. Yeah, they openly say it. And they might not be, huh? I'm just explaining to him. It's been Sufi. It's been Sufi. But there's levels of Sufiya. And it don't mean you can't take from him. Unless you're Salafi, then you can't take from him. You one of them guys? Oh, I ain't taking from him. You know how many ulama, their books, they wrote, we depend on the Lugha and Fiqh and Tafsir, had issues in Aqidah. The Sahih Bukhari, Muhammad Munir, he bought this talk about 4 or 5 years ago in Philadelphia. He said, they said you can't take knowledge from an innovator. And he was quoting a hadith. And in the chain, Bukhari was talking about the narrator. He said, Ru'us Qadriya. This person is the head of Qadriya. Ru'us Yani Bid'ah. This person was one of the head persons of Bid'ah. But he's in the chain of hadith in Bukhari. Because he wasn't going to lie about what he heard from his Shaikh that the Shaikh said the Prophet said.
Right.
So that knowledge, he's still somebody who's truthful. Although that's his aqidah, when it came to how the Prophet looked, how the Prophet prayed, what the Prophet said, he's just going to tell you that and that's it. It was known that man was a muqtadi, but he was truthful when it came to the hadith. He wasn't a liar. Or he was a person that believed this, but he wouldn't get on the member and call to it. There's a difference between someone who's muqtadi or muqtadi yad'u ila bid'atihi. He's a person who's an innovator, but he's a person who's from the people of innovation, and he calls to his innovation. That's different. Or he himself is warring against the people of Sunnah. That's different.
Yeah.
So if it's simply a masjid, Tabliki Masjid is known. These, masjid to Tabliki Masjid. You look on it, they're going to say they're from Jamaat Tabligh or Jamaat Dawah.
Okay, so
you could go in there. I'm still asking this question. So in this day and time, we have resources. If you don't know, and you go in the masjid and the guy is praying, and you pray behind him, your salat is good. But if you leave and you meet somebody after that, or you ask somebody and they say, who was the guy? You said, they said he was Imam so-and-so. And then he says, so-and-so. You got to verify that before you could take that. If you verify the man was a person who believes that he prays to Allah, his Shaykh and the Prophet, then you have to pray that prayer over just like you broke your wudu. But if you don't know, you pray and you break your wudu and you don't know. Your salat good or is it not good?
If you don't know, it's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
We went over this in the 40 hadith. Yeah. So it's only when you know. When you know. Is that clear, Shaikh Yusuf?
No.
And I got another question now. That's another one like off of his question. Every time he asks a question, I get a question. So,
I got some connection going on.
It was he had a man.
Just wind it up, Shaikh, because we gotta go.
In Atlanta, so there was a War of Deen community. I used to pray at that masjid sometime, and then my Sahaba said, they said that the Musalla is not 100% facing the right direction. So when we was in there with the Islamic Finder compass, it was true, like the Musalla was a little bit, it wasn't quite the same direction, because I don't know how to demonstrate how far.
So what's the question? That's the main thing, Shaykh Osama.
Is it okay to pray in the masjid if the Musalla direction is slightly off from what the compass is clearly establishing as the direction of the Qibla?
That's an excellent question. Allah bless you. This question, I'm going to give two answers to it. One has to do with if you were to pray in the masjid and the Qibla is totally off, meaning we should be praying the way I'm sitting and we're praying behind me. Yeah. If you were to pray like that for 10 years, and someone comes in and they say, y'all praying the wrong way. You say, we're praying the right way. This guy, he deals with solar panels. Mm-hmm. This happened in Masjid Ashab al-Yamin, Fort Avenue in East Orange. They were praying this way, towards the door to the right. For since 1996 until maybe a few years ago. So that's at least 20 years. At least 20 years they were praying that way. 17, 18 years. The guy came with the solar panels, so you know he has to measure direction, that's his thing. He came and he said, wait a minute, y'all praying the wrong way. So they looked at him like, what? You got to be out your mind, man. You tripping. I said, no, for real. I'm telling you. I do solar panels. This is my job. I'm telling you, I know the direction is, y'all praying the wrong way. Sure enough, man. They opened investigation, got tools, measures, compass, this, that, come to find out he was right. Guess what they did? They had to tear the carpet up, put brand new carpet, and change the direction and move the member and everything. What do you think happened to those 17 years of those people so much? Is it good or bad?
It's good because their intention is right.
They have no control over that. So even if it's a lot off, totally in the opposite direction, the salah is good. So now what about if it's just a little bit off? The salah is good. That's one answer. Another answer, if it's a little bit off, then Ibn Abdul Bar, you guys can go Google Ibn Abdul Bar, like bar, a candy bar, Abdul Bar. He's from the great scholars of Andalus, Spain, Maghreb. He has an explanation of the Muwatta of Imam Malik, which we used to reference when we went to Madge, because we used to have to do homework for our classes, so you learn to go in the library and what books and research. And so I remember reading in his, it's called a Tamheed, explanation of Muwatta Imam Malik, this issue of facing the Qibla. And he said that the further you are away from Mecca, it's that much harder and impossible to face the Qibla because you're too far away. If the Kaaba's right here, you can face it from this side, from the right, on the other side, the left, you can face it easily. But if I go to the bathroom, or let's say I leave and go out in the street, or go the next block over, or the next block over, that's going to be that much harder the further I get away from this table to face it. So instead, that's why you face a roundabout. You face, not the thing, but you face, من حيث كنت فولي وجهك, فَوَلُّ means to turn in the direction of. It doesn't mean to face it مُبَشِّرَةً, right, directly. You indirectly facing it. But you're not facing it like it's, how are we going to face the Kaaba from here? We're way in the mountain. There's no way. You're talking about waters and mountains and turns and this and that and streets and this. So we facing, and that's why the compass might say, point this, that, northeast, this, that. You move it a little bit, it changes. It's not that precise. So he said in some cases you can face it this way or that way. Like let's say the Qibla was just straight. But you got more people in the rank facing this way because you can face this way or this way because it's on an angle. And we were in a building like that before. We were facing this way, but if we face the other way, we got more people in the rank. And it still was facing around about the same direction, so we changed the direction. So it's not that precise. And sometimes the people do that, like we have a landmark here. So if my toe is a little bit like just not even Steven, it's just like a smidget. Somebody will come shake your toe, on my shoulder, and they don't understand the issue. So I can't say, I hear you, that's not necessary. I'm still facing it around about the way. It's not like the salat is off or it's a center. People don't understand that concept because they've been taught this is facing the Qibla. Like just if I move my nose like this, I'm not facing the Qibla. It's not that serious. I mean, if you were in Mecca where you could really face it, but we're too far away. So you try to find an estimated, approximate, facing of it. You see what I'm saying? So just going to give you a
demonstration. You can stop the use. I know they tired of hearing you online. So the Kaaba should, the Qibla, I should know it's okay. I should be standing like this. But